What's going on, everybody? Hope everybody's having a good day. We're going to try to get in here and start coverage on this 2022 SEC Media Day. Coach Kelly's already up on the stand, so let's just kind of cut right to it, and we're going to go right over here, and that's what we got. So, all right, let's see what he's talking about, and make sure.
Ability to program, at the highest level. I've done it for 32 years. I've had success at Notre Dame, Cincinnati, Central Michigan, wherever I've been. So, running a program and then, developing player development. I think those are the most important thing. And I don't think that needs to be, geographical in the sense. I've gotten to love where I'm at in Baton Rouge. I love the people. They love football. They love family. And they love food. And that fits me really well. So I guess I should have been in the South all along. But I love the fact that Oklahoma and Texas, two great programs, are coming into the SEC. And, that speaks to Coach Sankey and understanding, the lay of the land and being proactive and having two great institutions coming into the SEC. We'll be excited about when they officially join to have them on the schedule as well.
We're going to go over to your side, second row, Glenn. Hey, Glenn Gilbo, and I'll kick that down. You haven't been at Notre Dame for quite a while. Would you be surprised if they joined a conference, or do you think they'll stay independent, and just what do you think of their philosophies for it?
It's probably not been high on my list of things to think about. I've been trying to correct the slice for the last couple of weeks, and I haven't had much success with that. So I'm going to go back to my day job. But I would say that, certainly Notre Dame still is, a coveted, university in terms of, what conference would want them. Jack Swarbrick knows what he's doing. He's got his ear to the ground. They're going to land into a good position no matter what they do, whether they stay independent or whether they go into the one of the other conferences. Notre Dame can carry itself pretty good.
We're going to go right here on this near aisle in front of me, about 3/4 of the back. Go ahead.
John Bednarowski from the Marietta Daily Journal. Coach, BJ Ojulari is one of our kids.
He is.
Was hoping to get your thoughts on your initial impressions of him and what you expect out of him this year.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I've gotten to know him as much more as a person than a player. Saw him a little bit in spring. He's a good player, too, by the way. But as a person, he's what you want to represent your program, and that's why he's represented us, as our student athlete representative in the NCAA forums. He represented us in our student, interactions on campus. He represents us here today because his traits are outstanding. His character, how he handles himself in the classroom. He's a leader, and I couldn't say more about the.
Okay, points per game last year, FBS ranks 80. Yards per game last year, they ranked 90th. And passing yards per game, some ranked 45th. Rushing yards per game, there was 114. Now, defense last this season, they had 38 sacks, to tie for 24th. But, to be LSU is, gosh, they're always known for their defense. So, they're not hardly above 65 on anything for yards that they've allowed and that kind of thing. September 4th, we're going to have Florida State. The 10th is Southern, 17th, Mississippi State, and then New Mexico, September 24th. Let's go next question.
Yeah, I think probably more than anything else, the fight in that team. I thought they fought for 4 quarters against Notre Dame last year. That was a team that
Now, he
you know,
does have
obviously played
263
overtime. They were
career
down
wins,
late,
third most
came back.
among active head coaches.
To do with buy-in. You could see them playing harder and harder. Maybe that wasn't as visible earlier on. So this is a team now that has Mike's stamp on it. It's going to play hard for 4 quarters. You know, you can see the development of younger players coming along, especially on the offensive line. You know, defensively, there's a structure there that is sound and fundamental. So I really just think you're just seeing the signs of a football program inside out, making the incremental progress that everybody wants to see more wins. But as a football coach, my eyes see a program that's been getting better and better.
Coach, we'll go back over to our right.
He's the only coach to be named the Home Depot Coach of the Year multiple times, 09, 12,
follow up on that.
and
What are your
18.
thoughts on facing Florida State in the opener?
They're asking about facing Florida State in the opening game.
Kind of carry over, given that you're in a new position.
Yeah, a lot of them carry over. I mean, you know, obviously we evaluate. They lost some really good players. You know, defensively, obviously, you know, one of the better defensive players in the country. But certainly, you know, we're relying on a lot of that film, and certainly player evaluations. You know, I know a lot about. You know,
It's 145 and 62 as an FBS head coach.
Offensive coordinator. There's a lot of familiar.
Central Michigan,
notes that
of
we
course,
can go
Cincinnati and
back
Notre
to, but,
Dame.
you know, we've got a new team, we've got new players. It's an opener. You know, you kind of, you know, you throw a lot of that stuff out because you know everybody is going to be playing at their highest level in their opener.
Hey, Coach, we're going to go on the near left aisle, straight down the middle. Here we go.
Hey, Coach. Chris Marler, Saturday Down South. Most important question of the day. In your best Southern accent, what's the favorite or best food you've had since you moved to Louisiana?
Well, understand now I have a Boston, Midwestern, Louisiana accent now, so you know it's 3 dialects into one. So it's no longer family. I got like all kinds of stuff to throw at you. So just be ready. The best, you know, it's probably the crawfish etouffee is. I mean, I don't know how you top that. Now, I would say also the grilled oysters. If you haven't had grilled oysters, try that. That'll get your cholesterol level up really high quickly. That's pretty good too.
Okay, we'll go here to our right, alongside the wall.
Coach Mitchell Summers with Fox Carolina. The SEC has really turned into the club that everyone's trying to get into, it seems. So, from your perspective, as someone that's on the inside, seeing all these other teams that are trying to get on the inside, can you describe what that's like?
Musical chairs, and then the music's going to stop here, and you're not going to have a place at the table. And I think that's scary for a lot of universities, and you know, it's left a lot of internal conversations about, you know, where do we go? And so I understand that, right? You know, there's a question about Notre Dame. What do they do, right? Maybe they're better positioned than some, but yeah, it's musical chairs, and there's not enough chairs for everybody. So, and that's the current state of college football.
We'll go in this middle section about 3/4 away in front of me, right there.
Jacob Goins from ESPN 106.7 in Auburn. Looking at the schedule down the stretch, a lot of tough road games in the SEC, at Auburn, at Florida, Arkansas. What's that? You know, what's your mindset going into those road games in the SEC this season and in future seasons, coming from Notre Dame now to the SEC?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. I think it's how you train your team. I mean, look, you have to be ready for a battle through December, right? You know, conference championship is in December. So if you're training your team just to get to the first week, you're never going to make it to December. So I think you have to have the end in mind first. And the end in mind first is December. And planning for those kinds of games in October and in November. And so I think you have to be very intentional about how you train your team, how you practice. All of those things matter because you're going to be playing big games in October and November. And look, you want them to be big games too. So let's be clear, right? What you do in September matters because, October is important or you don't matter in November. So I think answer the question in the fashion of training your team the right way and getting them there is absolutely crucial.
Coach, we'll go over here in our right middle section.
Coach Michael Gibbs with the War for Auburn. How do you assess the physical readiness of this team to do what you're planning to implement this season? Are they physically ready from a strict conditioning standpoint? And then as far as the quarterback situation, what are you guys looking at there? Miles Brennan, it looks ready to go. You got Jaden Daniels. How's the quarterback situation looking this spring?
Yeah, I think our numbers look pretty good. Our GPS numbers show a fitness that will have us prepared for Florida State. We trained outside all summer. We have 2 more days this week, and then we're off. We finish up our summer program with 2 more days of training this week, today counting. So, yeah, we're healthy. I think our kids would tell you they feel as good as they've ever felt. Our numbers look really good across the board. And then as it relates to the quarterbacks, it's kind of similar to what I said to you, but to a number that have asked about the quarterback situation is that we're really going to have to set the offensive structure in its installation to the skill set of the particular players. Because number one, they got to take care of the football. Number two, they got to get the ball to playmakers. I've got playmakers on offense that are already in place. So they've got to get the ball to the playmakers. And number three, they've got to make plays, that quarterback. So the ultimate decision-making on who that quarterback is, well, he'll have to hit those 3 notes. And I think all of those guys can do that. We'll have to put them in that position so we can evaluate that.
Hey, Coach, we're going to go back over here on the left-hand side alongside the wall.
Coach Scotty from Auburn. I spoke with former alum Ryan Clark, and he's very adamant about the talent from the state of Louisiana. With their national recruiting, how do you balance locking down the state of Louisiana with the great players and balancing with other states that you've recruited out of Notre Dame?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, making sure that you evaluate the entire state of Louisiana. And I think that means, make sure you extend yourself. It's not just New Orleans and the greater Baton Rouge area. You got to get up north. You got to get all the way up through Freeport. You got to get up to Monroe. You got to get up all into the state of Louisiana. Now, that doesn't mean you just take a kid from Louisiana because he's from Louisiana. If he's not rated as high, then can you go out of state? Sure. But you better know the players in the state of Louisiana. And that means the entire state. And I think that's maybe where, if I've gotten any feedback, that maybe we needed to extend our recruiting efforts a little bit further north. And I think we've done that.
Coach, we're going to go right in front of me, about 3/4 of the way back. Right here in Teal Street.
Brian over here, josephgoodmanale.com. How much of the lopsided losses to Alabama claim to the fact that you wanted to leave Notre Dame for LSU?
That wasn't part of my decision making.
It's a dumb question.
Those were really good teams. They both won the national championship. I thought we played Alabama better than anybody in that last playoff.
No, actually, Georgia did.
They're proliferating.
Well,
they're
sorry.
talent,
In the Orange Bowl game, they played them
on the offensive side of the ball that year.
the year.
So that wasn't like, well, I'm taking the LSU job. Alabama was so much better than us. That was not part of the process.
No, I would hope not.
For me, it was
Eddie Lacy,
timing. It was
his group. When they played, they beat
this
them.
place at LSU and the administration and the opportunity to bring this program back. It really had nothing to do with the Alabama game.
Coach, we'll take one final question here to our left, second row. Bob.
Hey, Brian Popple, 37, 37. I think I read this right. But Brad Davis is the only assistant you retained.
That's right.
I wonder why you did that and what went into that thought process and just what kind of coach you think Brad is and what he'll do with the O-line.
So Brad was the interim head coach, so I got a chance to see him in a different capacity and much more of a, I would say, leadership capacity where he got an opportunity to really touch all of the players.
How about the coach that he brought with him?
His ability to reach players. And I felt like if he could reach all of those players, how well would he do with 15 to 18 players?
40% of offense experience coming back.
Also, he worked for Sam.
For
And
LSU.
I consider Sam Pittman one of the best, if not the best, offensive line coach in college football. And so he's been tutored under the best, played the position from Baton Rouge, just all those things together. And then my time with him and his want and desire to be part of LSU made it an easy decision for me.
Hey, Coach Kelly, thank you for your time this afternoon.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Congratulations, Brian Kelly. You can take a deep breath. You just got through your
First SEC Media Day.
Plenty was discussed there. We will get into the quarterback competition in depth in just a little bit. So I want to put that aside for a second. What he said, a lot of it based around competitive advantage and being competitive, but if you're an LSU fan, is being competitive enough?
Yeah, I thought it was interesting, the NIL discussion. I'm not sure exactly what the question was, but Brian Kelly mentioned, look, I have a lot of confidence in our collective as far as the money that we have to put into the recruiting aspect and getting players. He said, I'm not going to quote exactly, but we're competitive there. And I would just pose the question to every coach and every AD that's not at Alabama or Georgia, is it good enough to be competitive in NIL? Or do you have to be better than those teams in order to catch back up? You look at some of the quarterback transfers that went other places in our league and across the country.
Now, I heard some other talking heads going around on our Twitter or YouTube, whatever, talking about competitive balance. I shared a video clip from Greg McElroy when he interviewed Coach Saban. The competitive balance, we're not talking about literally playing football games, because that kind of question would be asinine to ask a question who is going to be competitive. Of course, the balance is going to be better balanced when you start playing more teams in your own conference. You know, Alabama is head and shoulders above Vanderbilt, yes. But the question really pertained to what Coach Saban is getting at, and he's always talking about this NIL money. So what we're discussing here is competitive balance in colleges about money. I thought maybe everybody understood what I meant by this little video we put out, and we did a locker room special on it. So we did get into talking about how games are going to match up. And yes, we think games will be better. It's better for Alabama to play Ole Miss, Mississippi State, and Florida and Georgia on a regular basis, other than Utah State, New Mexico State, and Wyoming, and Hannibal's grocery store up the street here. Of course, we know the answer to that question. The question is, how's the competitive balance going to be through these NIL deals? It's not. There's not going to be any kind of balance. It's going to be completely one-sided. And that's what his comments were saying, as in there's the haves and have-nots. And Coach Saban said, we're the haves. So is Kirby Smart. They're also part of the haves. Ohio State, I guess Clemson maybe. I don't know, because we don't hear a lot about their NIL deals up there. And Dabo seems to be somewhat sticking to say he don't like to do a lot of transfer stuff. He's a little old school, but we all know he's just talking and he's trying to hold on to some old school traditions, and that's fine. I get it. I like Dabo. He does a good job up there. But that's the real question. And the answer is no, because, of course, schools like Texas A&M can offer more money to players than a player could get out at Arizona. That's a fact. So just kind of cleaning that up a little bit. Competitive balance. Why is everybody talking about it? Well, that's why. It's because, yes, there's going to be no balance, because Georgia can pay more for their players than Georgia Tech can. So that's what we're meaning by competitive balance. I thought other people would pick up on that, and I'm sorry that they didn't. So I'm clarifying that today to clean up that locker room show that we've done. I think there was some confusion. Now let's carry on here and see what the SEC Now panel has. Greg McElroy and company.
You don't want to win games. Yeah. And any size, shape, regionality, heritage can win football games. You're a good football coach or you're not. It doesn't matter where you're from. I think Brian Kelly's going to prove that.
You want to fit?
Yeah, man. Yeah.
I'll tell you what fits in Baton Rouge. Winning.
Yeah.
He said
That's true.
jet etouffee is his favorite dish.
Just win.
So far.
Winning people over already.
I was gonna say, and he'll have a whole lot of crawfish etouffee if he starts winning with this program. Like I mentioned, we will end up getting into the quarterbacks a little bit more because there was a lot there. But one of the things that he brought up was tailoring offenses to each quarterback's skill set. I thought that was interesting, but maybe not the most practical thing. I'll start with you, Greg, and just what you thought about what he said related to that.
Well, when you have quarterbacks that have different skill sets, you have to have an offense that's going to best allow them to be comfortable within the offense. Jay Daniels not going to run the same offense as Miles Brennan is not going to run the same offense as Nussmeier. You have to be willing to adapt and change. And if you look at the predecessors, Miles in particular, he was going to fit a square peg in a round hole, and you knew what you were going to get. Well, great coaches don't do that. They are not only are they going to look and evaluate the opposition that they play every single week, which Brian Kelly does an amazing job of, but he's also going to look internally. They're going to self-scout. They're going to say, all right, what do we do well? What do we do poorly? How can we make sure the things that we do poorly are kept out of the game plan and things we do well are put into the game plan? So I think it's very important for any quarterback coach or any head coach for that matter that has their hand in the offense. If you're not tailoring the offense to your quarterback's skill set, you are forcing the quarterback to play at a disadvantage.
Yeah.
And if you get that reputation as a coach, it's not going to be good for you in the future.
All right, we will get into those quarterbacks coming up next. Will it be Jaden Daniels, the transfer from Arizona State? Will it be Miles Brennan, who's been around forever? Will it be Garrett Nussmeier, the redshirt freshman? They've got depth, as Brian Kelly mentioned.
Okay. All right, while they're on a commercial break, we'll take a look here at some of the returning players at LSU. Let's see. Of course, Butte, we talked about him on the show yesterday. He's going to be a top receiver, one of the best in the country. Brian Thomas Jr., sophomore, and Jack Beach. He's also going to be a top coming back for them. Not a lot of guys here as considered to be returning starters. They're just going to be doing a whole lot of stuff. Elijah Ware, he's a junior. He's going to hit the linebacker. He's really good. And Micah, he's the other linebacker. Baskerville, he's a senior this year. Okay, I thought he was just a junior, but he's senior this year. So they're going to be replacing a lot of people on both sides of the ball. Offense return 3, defense return 3. So defensively, Kelly appointed former Kansas City Chiefs linebacker, of course, Matt House. He's going to be running the defense there. The Tigers will go with a 3-man front with a top pass rusher, which talked about BJ. The defensive front is be stout, and they're suppressing the return of Ali Gay and his senior season to be next to sophomores, Mason Smith and the rising star in LSU's defense. Now, Micah, the Tigers' top returning tackle with 83 stops, and Mike Jones Jr. also will be back. Now, the school that describes itself as DBU will have a seriously retooled secondary. And talking about that, we were talking about top, safeties in the country, the best we'd ever seen. I had commented Ed Reed and some other guys, and of course somebody pointed out that he was not a safety. Yeah, no joke. I think I know that, but he's in the D-back group, and if you can't consider a conversation without being a safety, they are defensive backs. So he's in the backfield of the defensive team. And if you can't mention Ed Reed, then you're a moron. Ed Reed was the best to ever play any kind of defensive backfield. And I'm old enough to have watched him play. So I would surely anybody with any sense would have Ed Reed in their defensive backfield best of all time. I would say for LSU, watch for sophomore, Sage Ryan to push for significant playing time. And just talking about the nickel or the safety position. Kind of to wrap this up, and we're going to move on here through this. What are they going to do with their offense with the personnel? Well, that's a good question. It seems like that they want to go dual threat to run with their QBs, but there's really just Daniels, not the other guys. They got some playmakers on the perimeter, and they need to have an effective downfield passing offense with the personnel. I think you might see that be the rotate for the quarterbacks, which could be a difference. Or, to me, personally, it could be another set of problems totally altogether. Let's get back on and see what we got.
Guys out there, the three quarterbacks didn't think right now. Who's your favorite for that role?
Well, I think the question that we were just trying to answer is about fit, offensive fit, matching your quarterback skill set. I think the question that Brian Kelly and this team has to answer first is the quality and the value they're going to get out of the offensive line of the run game. Because I think that can kind of lean you in a direction, right? If the offensive line is going to be struggling and young, and John Emery's back, and you got Noah Kane transfer from Penn State, but if that run game's not there, they might need a Jaden Daniels. 1,200 plus rushing yards in his career. He can make things happen with his feet. If you feel good enough about the offensive line and about the depth of your running backs, then I think a guy like Miles Brennan is the answer, because the strength of this team right now is the wide receivers they have coming back. They're the top 5 coming back. You have talent in Keyshawn Butte, Jack Besh, I think is an underrated, really talented receiver as well. And Miles Brennan can get you in the right protection. He can distribute the football. He started really hot in 2020. The dude has played some football, y'all. He was in a quarterback competition before Joe Burrow was ever even an LSU Tiger. Right? Joe Burrow just went to the Super Bowl. So he's a guy that can get you in the right system, get the ball distributed to your talent. If you can run the football. If you can't run the football, we saw this last year, LSU's not a good offense.
How about this? All right, so you want to talk about unrecognizable. What did we all grow up watching LSU do? 2 things. One, they could run the football. Well, they finished 114th in college football last year, and they were great against the pass. DBU, right? Might be self-claimed DBU, and there's a few others that have. Or everybody's DBU. I mean, it's fine. Besides the point, but LSU, really, in the last 10, 15 years, you can make a strong argument that would be the best argument to be made when it comes to DBU. They finished 80th in the country against the pass. And explain to me, so the team that ran the ball with great efficiency forever, and the team that has always been great against the pass, those are 2 of their weakest spots of the team. So we can talk about the quarterback all we want. We'll get to that for sure. There'll be months and months and months to discuss quarterback competitions, and we look forward to those discussions. But my goodness, you got to solve those 2 things first. I don't care who your quarterback is. If you can't run the football in this league, you can't at least create some semblance of balance. You have no chance. I don't care if you have a superhuman at quarterback. It's going to be very, very difficult if you don't take some of the pressure off. So I don't care if it's Brennan. I don't care if it's Daniels. I don't care if it's Nussmeier. Do whatever you can to create opportunities in the run game to give your quarterback a chance to throw to one-on-one coverage to some of your talented wide receivers.
Well, that is why I'm going to say, I'm just going to flat out say, Miles Brennan needs to be the quarterback, because like Jordan said, he can flat out sling it. And last time we saw him,
he's got Miles Brennan to be the QB.
Terrible pass defense, like you were saying. So everybody's right here, and he was slinging it all over the place with my man right here, Terence Marshall. And now he has even better wide receivers like Keyshawn Butte. So Miles Brennan is the guy. He brings in great leadership. He's been there with experience. He has a great arm, and he's mobile enough. I'm not saying he can run a lot, but he's mobile enough. And you can control the pocket and dictate where you're throwing the football. That's all you need to be successful. They need some kind of calming factor to make sure this offense, this team is all alignment. And I think Miles Brennan will be the quarterback and the calming effect for this team.
And it's media days, right? I mean, no coach is going to tell you exactly what you want to hear. You can read between the lines. And Brian Kelly was up there and he mentioned Miles Brennan's leadership and how important that has been for the transfers that are coming in, the youth, the talent on this team. So maybe he's the glue that, at least early on, is going to get them in the right direction.
Too. I mean, a program that's in transition, having leadership at quarterback, I think a guy's going to create accountability is massive. If you're going on upside, it's going to be Jaden Daniels. The problem is, with Jaden Daniels' upside, there also comes inconsistency. And for whatever reason, you watch Arizona State the last couple of years, and I've watched them a lot. You watch this guy and say, wow, look at this dude. He can throw it. He can run it. He's creating plays, run around. He's like, there's one play that looks like Johnny Manziel. The next play, he's chucking the ball downfield like Joe Burrow. And then he makes one of the worst plays you'll ever see. It's like, whoa, wow. So if we can just get consistency from him, his ceiling's higher than that of the other two. It's just, for whatever reason, the light has not gone on a consistent enough basis over the last 3 years. He's had a lot of time, too.
Mm-hmm.
We're out of excuses with Jay James. It's time to take the next step.
And he's had great coaching. I mean, Herm Edwards, the coach, Herm loved it. You know, I covered their games a couple times as well. He is dynamic at moments, but you make a good point. I do want to address the defense quickly. Matt House comes in as the new defense coordinator the last 3 years with the Chiefs. They need a turnaround there. How do they start?
Well, they got to be in alignment. They got to be ready to go whenever the ball is set. We saw them way too many times last year where the offense is ready to go, and guys are pointing at each other. They don't know where to get responsibility. If somebody goes in motion, nobody covers them, or two people go cover them. That's not good. You have to have your cleats in the ground and ready to go. As long as you can line up, play assignment, sound football, make the offense take the long, hard road. Make them drive 80 yards. The offenses don't want to do that. They don't want the 3-yard check down. Make them take those plays and beat you 15 plays at a time on every drive. If you do that, then they earn it. Don't give them the game.
Here's the thing that I'm optimistic about when it comes to the defense. If you have to have a quarterback, that goes without saying. That's the most important position in football. The second most important position in football, especially in this league, is defensive line. And if you look at their defensive line, Olajari can get it off the edge. Mason Smith's poised to take the next step here now in year number 2 to potentially leap towards all-SEC contention, maybe even all-American contention. You have Ali Gay on the other side. There's reason to believe that this defensive line could be among the best in the league. Maybe not with Georgia, maybe not with Alabama, maybe 3 without question.
Well, you know, you think about it, LSU has never lacked for talent, right? No matter who the coaches have been, no matter the seasons that they've won championships and haven't, the talent has been there. We'll see how Brian Kelly puts all of that together. And coming up next on SEC Now, we're getting into the Georgia Bulldogs. Who will be on top, and what can Stetson Bennett do with another opportunity with this Bulldog team? A reprise, if you will. We'll be right back.
Man, the boss, the hustle, the shuffle, you make me wanna dance. You make me wanna dance. Precious baby, this is your sign of a good time.
Welcome to Allstate, where anyone who bundles their home and auto insurance saves. Isn't that right, Phil?
Okay.
Sorry.
Now, let's see. We're going to... Let's go over this right here real quick. Key Tigers come back. Miles Brennan, quarterback. We just heard the guys talk about him. Feels like he could be really good. He may finally get his chance to be a quarterback to the team for the entire season. We don't know. We can hope so. He'll need to find a way to show off some of his talent to really to be a contender for this job. That's going to depend on the offensive line, which we just went over that a minute ago. They're not bringing back a whole bunch of guys on defense. The few people that they are going to bring back are going to be on defense. We could say LSU is the SEC's biggest wild card for this year. The Tigers return only 6 starters and use the transfer portal to address imminent needs along the offensive line and in the secondary. Brian Kelly also needs to identify a quarterback from a 4-man battle, which had late were able to arrive from Arizona State, the transfer from Jaden Daniels, and no clear winning about as of the end of the spring. They still hadn't really decided anybody yet. As unusual in Baton Rouge, the Tigers won't lack for talent. Kelly has to adapt to the SEC, but if the pieces all fall into place for him, a top 25 finish could be within reason. They played in the Las Vegas Bowl versus Washington postseason. Odds of winning national titles, 200-1 here. Picked by some people. And we'll talk about the schedule this year. Let's go ahead and do that. Well, they'll be back on here in a little bit. And Ole Miss will be on at 1:30. I think that's right. So probably here in about an hour, I think he's going to be on. So we'll probably go through this and see what they're going to say, and then we'll get back to it. Schedule, they're going to have Florida State and Southern, Mississippi State, New Mexico. Then they'll be out of in Baton Rouge and travel over to the plains of Auburn October the 1st, then Tennessee, then at Florida, then Ole Miss to round out October. October is really going to be it's going to be a challenging season for most teams. If you go back and look at any of the other SEC teams, they are really going to have a tough October. So anyway, let's get back over here and see what they're talking about.
So we have finally conquered the Crimson side, and they sit atop the mountain in college football.
At the end of the day, the only manner by which you judge is do you win and can you complete the ball. And if you just keep it that simple, it's the same game I've played since I was 4 years old.
Well, Bryce Young won the accolades last season, but Stetson Bennett was nearly as good if you look at the numbers. He was one of 3 FBS quarterbacks to average 10 yards per attempt last season. Young and Bennett finished second and third in QBR last season, trailing only Ohio State's CJ
Stetson Bennett.
Company to be in for Stetson Bennett.
Had him number 7 on my.
Which is the national championship. Jordan.
Had him number 7 on my list that we did yesterday. Take a look there. Just kind of see what everybody thinks about it. Please comment. Tell me it's crazy or whatever. Trust me, there's no wrong answers. Everybody has their opinions, and everybody's opinions are right to them. So that's why we do this. So thanks for stopping by. Matt and Todd Show. Just putting in little plugs here for SEC Media Day, letting the guys talk here and listen to what they got to say, some of the board. And just fine. That's what we do, man. It's college football. And if I only got one person watching, that's okay. I'm still going to do it because I enjoy doing it. I'm going to be watching it, so why not just turn the mic on, you know? All right.
He did. So now the skepticism, you can get out of here with it. The dude just won a national championship. He's one of the most efficient quarterbacks in the entire country. He's dangerous when they need him to be dangerous. That's the problem, though. Georgia doesn't need their quarterback to do that. They're going to run the football. They're going to see a lot of 13 personnel this year of the tight ends that they got. They're going to pound you. They're going to spread you out. He's going to be efficient. He'll hit a big one now and then, and that's what they're going to do all the way to the SEC championship because that's all they need to do. So Stetson's a really good quarterback. Just won a national championship. Is he one of the best in the league? I don't know. But he doesn't need to.
I mean, really quickly, though, if the defense is different, does that change anything that they do offensively, or they just kind of stick with it? Because that can dictate the time of possession. And
it may change it, but I just think this offense for Georgia is scary. I think it's really scary with Brock Bowers, Darnell Washington, Eric Gilbert if he's on the field and healthy. They got Ladd McConkey outside. I mean, they can get in 13 personnel and go 5 wide.
Yeah.
And they say, okay, your linebackers, your nickelbacks, try running. Try running with Brock Bowers. Try running with Gilbert. I mean, you just can't do it. They're a matchup nightmare. So they're going to pound the football. They're going to play action pass. That's who they are. That's who Stetson needs to be. So he doesn't get put in that conversation of Heisman because they don't need him to put up those numbers, and they won't need him to this year either.
I think some people, they look at him and they're like, he doesn't fit. Like, you look at Georgia and they're like, get off the bus, all world, everyone looks amazing. And then there's that little quarterback. But he just turn on the guy makes plays, man. Like, I just don't know what more you want from him. And the guy's displayed leadership. He's displayed poise. He's continued to deliver in difficult moments. He just led through 2 touchdown passes in the fourth quarter of the national championship game to secure your first in 42 years. And yet I'm calling the spring game. People are lighting up my Twitter saying, Carson Beck's our guy. It's like, what are we doing?
It's like a spring game of all places.
Give the guy some credit, man. He has everything that you could possibly want. And the one thing that makes him different than the other guys that he was competing against last year, if you will, is the fact that he can create with his legs.
Yeah.
And with that offense, they're not going to ask for him to run it 20, 30 times a game. It's not going to be that. But he's going to make 2 or 3 plays a game where he extends drives because of a key third down scramble. And when you extend drives with that talent advantage and the way you can play on defense, it's only going to make the entire team better. So I think it's about time he gets his due. I think he's getting it from some, but he's not universally getting it the way he should be just yet.
Well, coming from a guy like Greg, hearing great quarterback like Greg, national championship like himself, and all they said, like Stetson said, do you win and can you complete passes? Do you complete the ball? Well, Greg said, do you win and can you hand the ball up to all you great running backs? So that's what he did, and Stetson is doing that right now. Oh, and I just love the fact that we're getting his due. He's doing his thing. He will continue to make those big plays, and like Jordan said, the tight ends to tunnel screens will play a big factor in everything they do. His completion percentage
may even be higher because I don't think they're going to throw it downfield as much. I think they're going to hand the ball up. They're going to do a lot of throws to all these tight ends right over the middle of the football field, and they're going to work the angles and do what they got to do defensively. I think they will pick it up enough. But offensively, they will have to show up a little bit more this year because you're not going to hold everybody to less than 7 points this year.
I think the South Carolina game, the experience there at South Carolina is scary just because so many missing pieces on defense. You know, Spencer Rattler, Jaleel Bell is one of the best tight ends, I think, in the country. They have another tight end from Oklahoma, Austin Stockton. It becomes an interesting matchup. But this is a weird game, and again, years ago, we saw
the first South Carolina team to be as good as Georgia teams. Like, so you're 100% right.
Here's what's interesting. I don't want to turn the page on Stetson just yet because I'm excited to see. Because he is as composed, as confident as you can be. But we've all been there. And especially as quarterbacks, you hear the noise. Whether you say you don't or not. Now he can say, hey, I did it. I don't need to listen to you. I don't need to look over my shoulder. Finally, you have a quarterback that is so supremely confident in himself because of what he did last year. Will we see a little bit more confident and even better player because of that? Right? You can say you're not looking there and you don't hear it, but you do.
He's still got the flip phone. I'm sure he's definitely going to be better this year. Like I remember when we won the national championship. Like we came back next year, we all worked our butts off. Like we just didn't happen for us. But man, I was a better player.
Yeah.
I was so much better my senior year than I was my junior year because it was like I played with house money. Like we already got what we wanted. I did. Like let's go. And I think Stetson's going to have that composure, and he's going to continue to push it down the field. And like you said, the weapons have improved. Like the weapons all around him are better than they were last year. When you take into account the wide receivers, like you're going to miss Burton. That's a difficult loss. It's a disappointing loss. But what you add with potentially Eric Gilbert, with what you have in McIntosh and Milton at running back and how he's stressing to be used, I think their matchups that they can create now are only going to be advantage to him when he kind of picks and chooses who he wants to go to.
Okay, let me just go back to the original question. Bryce Young or Stetson Bennett? You got to choose between the two. Who do you take?
Oh, that's not a question. Bryce Young.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, okay, I feel like
what kind of question is that?
I just
Come
want
on.
to make sure we clear that up. Also, Jordan, you have the top 5 quarterbacks in the SEC ranking later on in SEC now.
Okay, wait, nothing better than top 5.
Wait, give us a little spoiler. Is Stetson going to make the list?
He's just on the bubble.
No. All right.
It's okay. It's okay.
He's at 6. If that's at 6, yeah, sure.
I got him at 7. It's okay, Mr. Rogers.
I told you right now. Golly. No. He was in the conversation from 4 through 6. It was.
He's not top 5.
That means a lot of different things. We got a lot more coming your way here on SEC now. So keep it with us as these guys continue on. And Lane Kiffin is hitting the podium next. He's the next coach we'll hear from. Missouri and Eli Drebowitz finish up the day. What do we expect of Ole Miss? Lots of changes there. Kiffin is back though, and we'll talk about him next.
Okay. We'll take a quick little break here and we'll be right back. Let me try to do this. Hang on, we'll be right back. What's going on, people, YouTube world? Oh. Stop. Stop. Hey, what's this from? All right, everybody, welcome back. We're going to get back in here and get to looking at maybe some Ole Miss. See how Ole Miss is going to be doing here. Let's go right back over here. All right, here we are. What's up, guys? Ole Miss. Definitely a rising star that's been mentioned in a couple of different places is Taiwan Malone. He was a highly voted four-star prospect who didn't even make the type of impact many had expected last year. Malone played baseball in the spring and a tremendous athlete with the ability to make a major difference up front. I completely agree. Something to be looking forward to. High expectations for Ole Miss. Let's talk about that before we get back in here. Ole Miss returns a handful of players who saw significant actions in the defensive backfield last season. Safeties Finley and Otis Reese are back, as are the cornerbacks for DeAndre Price and Battle. I really like Battle. A handful of freshmen who played last year are also a year older and they're going to be better. The Rebels also added talent in the transfer portal, including Auburn's Tensions and Iowa State's Young. Kiffin's quoted in saying, "I think we're going to be really good this year." Johnson, the safety, says, plays for Kiffin, "I think we're going to be the best secondary in the country this year." That's what you're supposed to say, young man, because you're competitive and no doubt dude's a beast. But I would disagree. I think probably Alabama would probably have the best secondary with everybody that they're bringing back. So, kind of what we got going on right now. Let's see what the guys are doing. Let's get back over there.
To his advantage in the past. And it's become a bit of a destination if you want to be featured within an explosive offense. I like some of the pieces they've had already, but right now, as far as what they can do in the SEC West, I genuinely have no idea.
Yeah, and I think when you think about Matt Corral, you think about airing the ball out and amazing throws and plays. This team runs the football, and they need to run the football to be successful. They lost their top four. 3 running backs that were really talented: Ely, Snoop Connor, Henry Parrish. What I love about what Lane did in the transfer portal, he didn't just go get some guys that were okay. He went and got a starting quarterback from USC, right? Zach Evans from TCU was their leading rusher. Ulysses Bentley, SMU, number 2 rusher there. So you've got 2 running backs that can make an immediate impact. He went back to Louisville's number 1 receiver. I know Tyler Harrell went to Alabama, but this guy in Jordan Watkins had the most receptions. So a guy that can play some football, a tight end, another wide receiver, an offensive lineman. They return 4 up front. So I think running the football is going to be extremely important because you don't have the same element that Matt Corral brought. The physicality, the elusiveness, but you got to be able to spread the football quickly. It'll be interesting. And you mentioned it, but just because of all the transfer portals, because of Matt Corral, we kind of overlooked Jeff Levy. Yeah, that's a huge exit. I think Jeff Levy was one of the best play callers, best offensive coordinators in the entire country. Charlie Weiss Jr. is familiar with Lane's system. I don't think it's going to be a big drop-off, but it's not a loss.
Right, right. It has to count for something. But you know Jeff Levy very well. Yeah. All the meetings and things you did, all you did was talk about him and brag about him all the time. So I'm excited to see what Ole Miss does quarterback-wise. I watched a lot of film on Jackson Dart. I think he's a great athlete, a sneaky athlete. Mm-hmm. I think he has a great arm. He's explosive. We know how much success Matt Corral had running the football. But how does he do it picking up if he is a starter? And just playing the SEC West, we all know how big of a gauntlet it is. But their schedule sets up decently for them as the Ole Miss team.
Yeah, the games that are honestly, look at the games that are tricky. Troy's no pick, all right? Aren't there. They should win that game, but Troy's no pick by any stretch. Central Arkansas at Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech's got a decent quarterback, but still a lot of question marks around the Rambling Wreck. Tulsa's a very physical football team that wants to run it down your throat, so that'll be a challenge. So I think a good warm-up for Kentucky, because Kentucky is where you're going to figure things out. You know what they're bringing. They're going to run the football downhill. They're going going to try to establish the line of scrimmage. If there's one thing that while they were improved last year, Ole Miss's Achilles heel is still against the run defensively. So I think you're going to find out exactly where they stand in the first 4 or 5 games. If they can't stop the run and take strides on that side of the ball, then this team will still have a little bit of a limited ceiling. Because I think they'll score points, just whether or not they can stop anybody. And I think there's still questions
In
about
this
that.
league, that's paramount. Go ahead.
They got 5 returning starters on defense.
They will continue. You've got to make the offense pick the ball up, right?
White, Chapel, Jones.
They never have to pick the ball up. They will continue to just hand it off all day long, and they will continue to run it right down the middle of the field, right down the field.
A reminder that the 10 wins from last season for Ole Miss, a school record. It's hard to imagine them replicating that, but we'll see what they come up with.
DJ Durkin, Coach D, he's going to get it together.
Here. And then later on in the day,
Except for Nate.
he did not. He said
They could be 10 and 2
maybe.
also. So depending on what side of the argument you want to take for, there you go.
Roman's over here trying to make hot takes. Why that's not even happening. But I like it. Holding people accountable. All right. Now, Eli Drinkwitz will also hit the podium a little bit later on at 3:55. You see the Missouri head coach arriving here a little bit earlier today. And
All right, let's get into guys. We're talking about defense of Ole Miss. Well, we know it's Coach D, Durkin up there. He was at Florida in 13 and 14, I think. He was also, because he was at Michigan the year after that. So we know he's going to try to do better. He's going to try to do the same at Texas A&M. So with him, I don't know how I got on Texas A&M. Why am I talking about Texas A&M? Coach Durkin at A&M, he's going to do a good job too. But defensively, let's see. Yeah, they did take a good meaning of a season to move up in their ability to play defense. Surrendering 2 touchdowns less per game. That's definitely a good stat. Williams has been a big reason why. Setting the single season school record with 12.5 sacks in 2021. Maryland transfer Chase Campbell, he filled a void at linebacker last season, as did Robinson, which I mentioned him earlier. All 3 are going to be in this season. Ole Miss particularly is inexperienced in the middle, however, it says. Again, the Rebels worked in the portal, having up 3-time All-MAC linebackers Troy Brown from Central Michigan, Georgia Tech's defensive end, and former 4-star recruit Jared Ivey, and Auburn defensive tackle J.J. Pegas. Junior defensive end Cedric Johnson, 6.5 sacks last year. So they're going to clean up a lot of things. Let's see. Denarian Price, he'll play a very important role for them. And Reese, as we'd mentioned earlier, made 90 tackles last year and Finley led the Rebels with 3 interceptions to go along with 89 stops. Senior corner, again, Miles Battle, had bounced between offense and defense his career, but should settle down on defense after leading Ole Miss with 8 pass breakups. I had a transfer from Iowa State, Isham Young, and Auburn's Landry Stinson. I remember him leaving. Should help ease up some of the loss for the starting safeties. Jake Springer. There's depth apparently at safety for that nickel back position. So that's some talk about some of the guys there for Ole Miss defense. Coach Kiffin, he'll be coming on in about 30 or 45 minutes or so. So let's get back over it. Let's see what's going on.
That'll get you noticed, but here's what's interesting. Mississippi State ended up winning, 7 games last year? Yeah. 7 games. 3 of those games they lost by 3 or less.
Mississippi
One
State.
Memphis, that was a debacle. They should have won that game. The punt return at the end. But they lost 2 where they missed field goals, 3 of them against Arkansas inside 40 yards. At LSU, they missed a field goal to bring them within a score in the 3rd quarter. Field goal kicking was an Achilles heel to a team that was really close to winning.
They were 120.
Even if they can make a field goal.
They were 124th in field goal.
My question is, who's the 3rd best team in the league? But honestly, I don't know. I mean, you can tell me it's A&M. You can tell me, well, you look at the talent, LSU's got a chance to do it. Arkansas is going to be rock solid. Maybe Tennessee takes the next step. Kentucky's got the most favorable schedule. I honestly don't know who the third best team is in the SEC.
Third best team in the SEC.
The transfer that has gotten the most love, and that is Spencer Rattler to the South Carolina. I can't wait to see what this young man is doing. I saw him have up and down season last year. He had some bad throws, a lot of bad throws, some really highlight throws. The guy has all kinds of talent. He's going to bring a highlight reel to South Carolina, and they will come along with a high expectation.
Yeah, what a landing by Shane Beamer. He was last year's preseason Heisman favorite. He's now the Gamecock signal caller, Spencer Rattler. He was the number 29 player in the 2019 ESPN 300 recruiting ranking and the number 1 dual threat quarterback. He had 4,514 yards, 39 touchdowns, 12 interceptions at Oklahoma. And then right after OU season finished, he transferred to South Carolina. He went 8-10, 79 yards, 8 for 10, 79 yards in South Carolina's Garnet Black spring game for what it's worth. But Jordan, when you think about South Carolina and what they've done, think about this time last year and us talking about them, the expectations were very low. I think we probably underestimated Coach Beamer and what he was capable of. They filled a lot of holes in this roster, including putting Spencer Rattler at quarterback. How do you evaluate the Gamecocks?
I think they are right now, for me, the second best team in the East.
Wow. Pin drop.
They completely overperformed for what that
Interesting
roster was. In the greater cell, they had 3 quarterbacks, none of which were going to help them win. I mean, they won those games in spite of their quarterback play at times. So you had a guy like Spencer Rattler. The hate for Spencer Rattler, too, I believe, is completely overplayed. When you go back and look at it, yeah, he made a few mistakes, interception here or there, but the games where he got bets against Texas, he was on the road, man, against Kansas State, was 22-25, 280-something yards, 2 touchdowns, and he comes out, a slow start against Texas, and you know what? Caleb Williams, it's a superstar. He came in and played extremely well.
Yeah, Caleb Williams come in and did play well. I'm still, I think the verdict's still out on him, me personally. Coach Riley, he's going to get him going out there at USC most definitely. He's a great play caller, and he knows how to use his quarterbacks correctly. He's just got a little question mark for me. I'm just not sure. Talking about South Carolina, though, they got 7 guys coming back on offense and defense. A lot of key guys on the defense side of the ball, which we know about Rattler. So let's look at the defense. South Carolina had the best pass defense in the SEC last year. That can't be overlooked. And they only lose 4 guys on defense. You would expect they would be pretty good. So despite their marvelous gift at recording takeaways, an SEC high 24 interceptions and recovered fumbles, teams didn't have to pass against South Carolina. Because what we talked about the other night on one of our space rooms on Twitter, they're terrible up front and everybody just run the ball right at them. Well, that's where they're going to have to tighten up. And with bringing back on defense an end and all the middle guys and the corner guys, it should be a good shot at that to be able to stop the run. So,
who also was a great player at the college level, we saw him collapse upon himself like a dying star in his first 5 or 6 games in his second year as the starting quarterback at SC. When you have that type of expectations, it's really difficult to play loose. It's really difficult to play free. And you saw him be hesitant to cut it loose because he was scared to death to make a mistake. He also didn't know when to be that right. So I think that he is going to bounce back beautifully this year. I like his supporting cast. I'd like for them, very much so, to be able to run the ball with a little more efficiency, but having a threat of a passing game might help that. Their biggest concerns to me
that would open up the run game if they can throw the ball over.
I think they're pretty good, obviously.
You got to be able to run it to throw
But
it.
when you're that dismal against the run, that's where I have some issues. So, and they were hurt the most up front. They were, and that's where I really want to see that group, that front 7 defensively. If they can take some strides, that will go a long way to making them become what I think the ceiling for them is number 2 in the East. I don't have them there, But I think that is the ceiling. If they can figure out front seven defensively, it's a real possibility.
I want to go back to something that Greg just brought up there about the confidence of a quarterback. What is the blueprint there for Beamer? Because I don't know that people even understand his coaching style and how encouraging he can be. It feels like, to me, that's what you do with a quarterback like Rattler.
Yeah, and there's a familiarity with Beamer and Rattler both being together at Oklahoma. I actually talked to Shane this week. I thought the most interesting thing was drawn comparisons to Jalen Hurts, actually to Alabama, with Tua just being better at times behind him, coming into Oklahoma as a transfer, almost identical situation to what's happening with Spencer Rattler right now. And he said he learned so much, the leadership, how to navigate that system, the confidence that you have to refine as a quarterback that got booted and is still at a big program with a big opportunity. So he learned a lot from Jalen Hurts. I don't think the confidence thing and the familiarity with Shane Beamer is going to be an issue.
That's really an interesting comparison. It ends up that all this is interconnected anyway. All these coaches and players end up moving around and having success. We've got more coming your way here from Atlanta as we carry on with SEC Media Days 2022. The podium empty now. Lane Kiffin is up next, and then Eli Drinkwitz later. But next, we're talking the Georgia defense. What do they have in store after losing so many players to the NFL? We'll tell you. Keep it right here.
All right. Commercial break. We'll get into a little bit of the defense here. Was talking about with South Carolina. Definitely the Gamecocks did lose a couple of talent for the edge rushers to return at bulk on their interior line and linebacker, so along the lines of the O-line. So does that matter if it was so poor anyway? Well, we can hope that your two guys, that Jordan's and Strain, Birch, can hurry the quarterback, and that Pickens and Sandridge, Hemingway, and the company can handle the interior. Green, returning from 2 years off of injury, can help the 6-year senior Brad Johnson handle the linebacker spot. Secondary is going to return Smith, one of SEC's most underrated players, Cam Smith, alongside fellow corner Darius Rush and safety RJ Roderick. Those three held together a battered unit last year. So we're going to see if Beamer can kind of put everything together. Seems like he had added the Reed kid to come from Central Michigan in the transfer portal last year in passing. Dowdy had almost 1,000 yards with 5 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. And rushing, McDowell, 248 returning. Now, Harris was definitely a leader with almost 700 yards, 4 touchdowns altogether, and receiving, Van, Bell, and Joyner are all going to come back. All those guys, Van's your leader, almost 700 yards, had 5 touchdowns. So, part of the offense. I've seen Rattler play. I think a lot of us probably watched the Last Chance U, watched him play on there, and you know he's got a good mom and dad at home, got good advisors around him. He was a superstar at high school where he played, and you know it seems like he'll be able to figure it out pretty quickly. He's definitely a good dual threat guy. You heard some of the guys, they may have compared him to a Jalen Hurts type player. We'll see. We'll see how Beamer ball works out. The young Beamer, that's going to work out for them. They're going to be starting off the year with Georgia State, and then they're going to travel to Arkansas, and then they got Georgia at home. So that's definitely going to be a touted first couple of games there. Let's get back in here and see what's going on. SEC now. We're here live on Matt and Todd Show. Excuse me, some SEC Media Day coverage.
Player or unit centric this time around? Roman, you get to start us off.
Well, for me, the thing I want to watch the most is the best player in all of college football, and that is Will Anderson Jr. versus everybody. Every.
I just hope Anderson don't get hurt.
Not all the teams, but
it concerns me, as a lover of the game of college football.
Voters that snubbed him last year, he should have been up there as one of the top finalists because that goes with you for the
We have such a great season to come back and do it again. I mean, people already keying on him. They were double teaming him, so you know what you're going to get with him. He's going to be a phenomenal player to watch. Will Anderson, Alabama.
Mine's going to go with two former teammates that will be facing off against each other when Alabama and LSU collide. Kayshon Boutte, one of the best receivers, if not the best receiver in the SEC, going up against Eli Ricks, who formerly of LSU is now playing for the Crimson Tide. I know there's no love lost between Eli Ricks and LSU after he left for the in-division rival. So that'll be a heck of a one-on-one matchup at NFL Scouts Club.
Well, we know how good Georgia's defense was last year, but this is a completely new defense, especially at the linebacker level and safety. Lewis Cine, Kobe Dean, Quay Walker, Channing Tindall, Latavius Brini, the nickelback, and they're going up week 3 against a South Carolina football team with an elite talent at quarterback and 2 really good tight ends in Jaleel Bell and Austin Stalker. That's the matchup to watch. South Carolina could catch them if that defense is not ready yet.
Yeah, that's a question. I think we have a lot of Georgia fans on our page that follow us, and I'm definitely a Georgia fan. I wasn't happy that the team that I kind of root for most of the time lost it, but guys, if Bama's going to lose it, I mean they've won a lot. Then let Georgia get them another one. So I say that to open up with this, that they lost a lot of guys. I mean, you got guys at Green Bay, Philadelphia, the Jaguars. There's just a huge list of guys up front up there that Georgia lost. I know Kirby has recruited very well, but I just couldn't be honest with myself if I didn't have some concerns. As I was concerned last year with Bama's defensive backfield, they just had spots and holes that we just thought about, and doing this, what we do, we talk about college football. I just think it'd be just, kind of brash to say that Georgia defense is going to be as good as it was last year. You can't say that. So, and we've looked at their schedule, and as weeks go on here, as it gets closer to September, into August, we'll start dissecting games and doing those kind of things. We cover the SEC here again, Primetime Sports Network, affiliated here on Twitter. You can go over there at Big Matt 1977. We're Primetime_SEC. So that's kind of the question. Has Kirby recruited well enough to be able to take that defense back to? You just can't retake that defense that they had last year. It's just not going to be. It's not going to be exactly the same. It's going to be a little different. We all have to admit that. So, where are they going to be at? And he'd like to see Georgia D-backs, their defense just in general, to go. He had picked Rogers' kid just to be against South Carolina's tight ends or that kind of thing. And like Latu at Bama, we talked about him a little bit yesterday. He's an up-and-coming rising star. So, how's Georgia's – those guys they're missing, how are they going to match up there? I think it's a question, and that's why I had commented today. Georgia may lose a game. They may have a loss this season. And it shouldn't be a big deal as a fan. You should think, goodness gracious, if we could win 10 games, it'd be great because all they got to do is just win that side of the division. I mean, that's all they really have to do anyway. They win that, and they're going to make it to the SEC title game and get a shot at probably Alabama again. So let's just see how that defense pans out. As they go through their first couple of games there, they got South Carolina the second week. Be interesting. I'm not saying South Carolina is going to be the team that beats Georgia. I'm just saying it's going to be something to watch. See how Rattler settles in, and we'll just see how it goes.
important because any movement changes the count entirely. When you're in a pattern match, you're matching.
They only have 21% of their experience at Georgia returning.
Everything changes when they move, when a formation is different. That's communication. I did a little like on the field drill with those guys, Channing Tatum, Jordan Davis out there, talking about all the communication. They knew each other so well. Communication was an afterthought. It's not at the start of this season. That leadership will need to develop.
I will be interested to see what they look like without Dan Lanning as well. He was so impactful. Even watching him in the draft with Kirby Smart, you can see their relationship, their chemistry together. Having him now at Oregon, who of course they'll see early on, is really interesting to start the season. All right, guys, so we are going to hand this over to Joe Tess and the guys. Benjamin Watson and Tim Tebow are joining him there, and we will see them in just a little bit. We'll be back with you once again tomorrow, but SEC Network has you covered all day long from SEC Media Days. It's all you, Tess.
What about Joe Tess?
Oh, fancy.
He does a good job. Or like Joe Tess. We talked about some of that experience on Georgia, and you can definitely know that they're gonna be a tough situation offensively. Now they're bringing back 7 from Mitchell, McConkey. We like him. Van Prine, Warren McClendon, Brock Bowers. He's a superstar. I really enjoy watching him play. Young kid, seems like he really works hard, and of course Bennett. Now defensively, things that we just kind of went over. I think we could probably say in final that Georgia's talent level, giving it a high floor and a high ceiling. Kirby Smart's crew will be big, fast, and physical on both sides of the ball, but it's never easy to replace the amount of production that the Bulldogs lost after winning it all a year ago. Finding leadership will be key to navigation to yet another workable schedule. So, just to start out, we know they're going to play Oregon. That's going to be, well, it's good to see Bo Nix, I guess, come back and get his first shot back in the SEC. They're going to loosen up and play Stanford. They're going to travel to South Carolina. Then they're going to have some 3 easy games to me, starting the 24th of September. Kent State at Missouri. They'll host Auburn, and the next game they'll host Vanderbilt. Now, of course, the cocktail party, they're going to play Florida, and then Tennessee, at Mississippi State, at Kentucky, and then finish with, of course, in-state rival Georgia Tech, November 26th this year. Last year, the Auburn game was, 34-10, looks like. I'd expect it to probably be about the same score. I don't see why it wouldn't be. And a Missouri game, 43-6. Missouri may score a little more this year. That'd be like a 35-14 kind of game. Georgia Tech was wipe out, 45-0. Now, South Carolina game last year was 40-13. They're going to catch them a little earlier in the year, which with a lot of returning guys, the 7 on offense that's played at Georgia, a lot of football against a Gamecock squad that it's going to be kind of new to some of them. So we'll see how that turns out. And if you're looking for a game that Georgia could mess up here, it's probably going to be October. It's in there. I can't put Florida beating Georgia. I just don't. Something just great would have to happen. I guess Richardson would just have to have one of those kind of games. Maybe Tennessee may be a loss. It seems like by their schedule here and looking at it, yeah, sure, everybody's going to favor them to be undefeated because, they're returning champs. And you got to give credit where it's due. But if there is a stumble, maybe Tennessee. So, and that game is it at Tennessee or? No, it is at home. It's at Georgia. So, that'd be a good one. Let's get back.
Others
That's the one thing that got the day started. No sense of urgency, no panic and reacting to what others are doing. What has your attention, Benjamin? What excites you when you sit here and get ready to cover SEC Media Days?
Tess, do we really need to ask that question? We are sitting here in Atlanta, Georgia, the state, Tim Tebow, where the reigning national champion.
Here we go.
There we go. And this is how
It's Benjamin Watson on the panel there.
I'm going to start them with I'm walking as a fan. I'm an analyst at the desk. But I am interested, however, to see how Georgia handles success. I want
You got Tebow on the board, too.
This week, what they're going to
Rodgers
do
and
on the
Ted.
board last year. But today, I think simply when we think about Brian Kelly and we think about LSU, new coach, how are they going to turn around what was an abysmal year last year, the worst year they've had since 1999?
Benjamin, of course, we're going to end the year with something with you about the Dogs and start it with something about the Dogs. But I agree with you. I think it's the change. And always at this time of the year, no one's lost, so everyone's so excited, right? And I want to see, with all of this change, who and when is going to actually be able to come through with the hype and the expectation. Me and Joe were talking about it maybe an hour or so ago, and, you know, like, everyone's getting hyped. And the reality is there's a lot of these people that are getting hyped that are also going to get humbled. And it's fascinating to see, you know, with all of this, with the change in Florida, LSU, so many other places, right? There's probably only 3 schools right now in the SEC that aren't getting a whole lot of hype, you know? And besides that, you know, it's going to be really interesting because someone's got to lose as well.
Great segue to me over here. I don't know if that was a shot intended or not.
It really wasn't.
But I think to that point, I think best storyline for me, it was 3. We know Alabama, we know Georgia. You could make an argument for 6, 7 other teams.
Who you like to be number 3 in the SEC out of all the conference?
So much promise. All
Tennessee,
the league with transfers, with quarterbacks.
South Carolina,
a couple knowns.
A&M. Good gracious, they got a lot of dudes, but you know, are they ready to play? So,
Yes.
oh, he's thinking Georgia might be 3. All right, Tim. Okay.
The league takes on like a bookend approach, right? You know 1 and 2. You know 14. Yeah. And then what's this? Listen, when you were there, it was 9 wins. It was back-to-back. It was the glory days. It was the glory days. To your point, we do have some returning stars, including at the quarterback position.
Year of the quarterback. We got so many guys moving around. I mean, Auburn picks up A&M's and LSU got different quarterbacks. Rodgers, you know, coming back, he broke all kind of records. I really like Jefferson at Arkansas.
6'3", 245 pounds. When you look at him, first thing that comes to mind is skin move.
Will Levis, Kentucky. The board is so up there on Will Levis. Like, so many people like him and so many don't. I mean, a lot of people done sold him out saying, you know, they ain't gonna win 7 games, maybe. Hooker, Tennessee.
The boys.
Ross Young, Alabama. Lost a lot of weapons on his offense. Offensive line was not that good. We're going to see if they can tighten it up. The offensive line at Bama doesn't get any better.
Yes, it was. Right, Sean. When you look at,
I know they played the national championship, and I'm griping about their offensive line being mediocre.
projected
I'm sorry, but
for next year on SEC
their interior
players,
guards and stuff, it's just not good.
Number 2, the conversation is quarterbacks. Anthony Richardson is a guy talking about stock prices. You talk about stock prices that are ascended where, you know, this is like a tech sector IPO back in the late 90s. Anthony Richardson, as he is already on that list. Of course, he will take the reins fully this year. And Will Levis, I think Jordan is the great in-between of some people view him as, oh, he could be the next great franchise this, and everybody in the NFL, and then others say, let's wait and see where things keep going. But we turn to you, our quarterbacks up here at the set, and we ask you, let's go through your top 5, Timmy.
Well, first of all, I want to say this is one of the hardest it's ever been because I think right now it might be the best year for SEC quarterbacks that it's been in my time covering the SEC.
Wow.
You have so many guys
been a year or
that are
two.
so talented, and I don't mean just in the NFL to projection, but the chance of being elite in college football this year. And it starts with Bryce Young because this dude, his poise has always been beyond his years. He's so mature. I was just with him for a couple of days at the Nissan Heisman House, and like even in acting, he's calm and he's poised. Like there's nothing that frustrates this kid. I think he's going to have another amazing year. I think he's going to have a run at possibly a Heisman and maybe another national championship. He's really special. And I want to give Jordan a lot of credit for this guy because before anybody else was talking about him,
Yeah.
Jordan was talking about
Will Levis at 2.
He is bigger than you think. He is way more athletic
I got
than
him
he
at
gets credit
6.
for. He can absolutely sling it. He is a really, really good quarterback that has the chance of being great. And I'm not talking about the NFL. I'm talking about this year for Kentucky. He also needs some receivers, tight ends to step up. And maybe the most talented guy at any position in college football, maybe, is Anthony Richardson. You're talking
got
about
him
a
at
guy
3.
that
I got
might
him
be
at
the
5.
fastest, one of the strongest, and one of the most athletic on the field at any position. He is an absolute freak. If he can stay healthy, figure out this new scheme, this new offense, and play to his skill set, just literally, we say this all the time, but there is no ceiling for this kid.
Yeah, Rattler, of course.
This is super underrated. Spencer
Okay.
Rattler, super talented, very accurate, very poised. Will he have a good enough offensive line, a good enough receiving core? But I mean, what a talented kid. He's one of the top quarterbacks coming out. I really like his game. I think when he plays confident, he plays elite. And if he can build that confidence, and hit Hooker and High School's offense, he can.
Hooker, Tennessee, 5th.
I think he's underrated from last year. I think he's going to learn from that experience. I think he's getting better as a thrower, continuing. And this was really hard because KJ Jefferson and some other guys are up there in the mix for this 5th spot. But I think Hendon Hooker's primed for a really big year, especially down the field with deep balls.
I am shocked that you got Levis and Richardson that high. Two of the most talented, but there's some question marks there too. I'll give you my 5. Okay, Bryce Young, there's no question there. Bryce Young is the best quarterback in the country right now. I love Jermaine Burton. I love what they did in the transfer portal to give him some option. Tyler Harrell as well from Louisville. I think JoJo Earl needs to make a huge step, like the Darius Toney type step from his junior to senior year. That would really help out that offense as well. I'm going Spencer Rattler at 2 because I think that, for Spencer Rattler is egregious right now. He's won his last 14 starts. The game before he was benched against Texas last year, he was on the road to Kansas State with 22 of 25, 280-something yards, 2 touchdowns. You know what? He had a bad start against Texas, and the guy behind him was a superstar. I think the offense is going to set up really nicely around Spencer Rattler. Hendon Hooker, I tell you what, when I saw him last year in practice,
I'm kind of curious. Here's a question we could throw out there. I hadn't, it's crossed my mind, but and it may be a crazy question, but it's just a question. Rattler, like they're just talking about going into the Texas game, he didn't play very good. Is there a possibility that he was hurt? Something happened, but with the news and how many people they have covering all these, around the college and stuff these days, I don't know. It seems like we would know about it if he was, but I'm just throwing that out there. If he may have had, a sore shoulder or something like that, I don't know. Let's get back to Mr. Rogers. He's got Hooker 3rd, got Jefferson at 4th, Arkansas, and of course he's gone in with Rogers here at Mississippi State. I think the thing about Rogers is because of the offense that he plays in, he's going to throw for a lot of yards, and they're going to bring back a few guys to kind of help that out. And of course Leach with his tiny little play calling card, probably be pretty good. So.
he puts up ridiculous numbers, not just because of the offense.
Talking
He
about
makes the big
Mississippi
time
State.
throws now, too.
He does make some big time throws. Listen, I can't knock any of those guys. I think there's a lot of good merit for every single one of those guys. And I think you're picking and choosing between a lot of really good players. And this is the difference in some of them is, do they have one more receiver, one more tight end, one more back?
They're going to come together.
Yeah,
Exactly right. So it's really close.
Do you see how the quarterbacks just take over? Right?
Take
Take
over.
the ball and
What about the guys that, like me, who actually have to receive? Maybe you'll get my opinion.
I want to get your opinion.
That's what we talked about.
We're going to keep talking quarterbacks, but look who's standing by, ready to come on here. VK, make your way up here, my man. We got Brian Kelly. He's in the purple. The tie looks beautiful. Come on up to FCC now. God, I've known you forever. Now I know you as an SEC head coach. We got Brian Kelly when we return right here. SEC Now, presented by Regions.
Okay. So we got here, Tim and Mr. Rogers kind of go through their top five. It's kind of, I got Spencer Rattler at 8, and I think just try to defend my point, I guess, about putting him at 8 and not having him. We just don't know. I mean, we just really don't know. We don't really know what Spencer's going to do out there. And I mean, we're talking about, leaving a school and going somewhere else, and different coach, how the coach calls the game, and coordinators are different, and the relationship's going to be different. I'm not sure what happened there with Coach Riley at Oklahoma. And I mean, we know he wound up leaving because he wasn't getting to play, and he kind of got his butt on his shoulders, and he was going to leave immediately and transfer right out. And from stories of people walking the Boomer Sooner train down there, that Spencer's dad wouldn't let him. Said that he had made an agreement and he's going to stay and stick it out. And I love that. I don't care who you are. If you make an agreement and to keep the kid to stick it out and just try to do his best while he's there, shows good character. And it's a good decision by his father. Everybody may not agree, and that's okay. We don't all agree on everything. Back to the list. They, seem like they both kind of like Rogers and definitely Hooker. Now, the thing with Hooker at Tennessee, guys, they're going to have. He's a very electrifying player, and we all know that they got a young guy down there that'll be coming in. He's going to be finishing up his senior year. He plays out at, I think, at Polytech in California. That's Nico, the guy that we talked about here on the show, that I like better than Arch Manning, and that's something that I reported on a month ago that was not a very popular take, and now it seems like it has been a take. So offensively, Tennessee's going to have 8 back. Defensively, they're going to have 6 back. Looks like most of their line, is going to be coming back. Now, you're going to have Small. He's going to be a junior. He's going to be back in the backfield with them on offense. And the Tillman guy, he had over 1,000 yards last year. He's going to have some kind of career out there at Tennessee when it's all said and done. And, well, Hendon Hooker also rushed for 600 yards, 5 touchdowns. So passing, he almost had 3,000 yards, 31 touchdowns for 3 picks, guys. I don't care who you are. That's pretty doggone good. 31 for 30. I don't know who could vote against that. Defensively, for Tennessee, since we're talking about them, we got a minute or two. They went through and kind of weeded out the weak and the strong, and the latter of which is Heupel's focus in the spring. Try to get the guys stronger, be more competitive. I'd say the Vows as well, they're getting into the backfield. The program record 102 tackles for loss. That's a big deal. We know defense is where it's won at, but they struggled on 3rd downs and against the pass, allowing opponents to convert 42% of 3rd downs and 273 passing yards per game to rank last in the SEC. So it seems like if you're 42% on giving up 3rd downs, seems like you could say there may be a flaw in some character or that kind of stuff, or you could say maybe 3rd down play calling. I mean, the game's played on the grass, and it is what it is, and players make plays and coaches call plays, so that'd be something to look into. So, and with them bringing back 6 guys on defense, not terrible. So then they keep asking this question, maybe who's the 3rd best team in the SEC? Everybody's got Bama and Georgia, respectively so. I mean, guys, they played in the national championship game. That's an easy pick. Tebow questions. He kind of said, well, it's Georgia. Are they 2? Well, if they're 3, then who's 2? And with Rattler being new out there. You know, what about the old pizza wrap, old Calzone at Auburn? I mean, you know, he had a game of his life against Alabama, and he's at Auburn. So, you know, he's going to see them again in November in the Iron Bowl. I don't know. Let's look back at the deal here again. I don't know who's going to be two. I mean, you can't put Auburn there. They just hadn't recruited any well at all. Now, Jackson Dart, and I've heard from some chat rooms that Dart may not be their starting guy. His spring game looked a little bit wishy-washy. You know, would you favor Arkansas, I guess, to be the third team? I'm saying, you know, Georgia's got to be two. I mean, they're defending national champs. How could they not be? And everybody, the team amount of players that were brought back to Alabama defense, and the captain of the ship, Bryce Young, the cold-blooded assassin he is, you have to put them at one. So, I guess with the experience and how they played last year, I don't know why Arkansas shouldn't be the third best team in the SEC. I mean, we can go back through there. Anthony Richardson, you're looking at, I got fifth on there. I just was never sold on him last year. Will Levis at Kentucky. I think Stoops has done an amazing job out there. However, this may be the year if they can't break through and have, you know, just lose a game or two, you know, they can win more than 10. Maybe something to talk about. Coach Stoops maybe hunting a job somewhere after the end of the season. I don't know. Now, we got 1-7 there. So you got Bama and Georgia, Bryce at 1, Stetson at my number 7. He deserves a lot of credit. Yes, he's just a game coordinator, but guys, didn't they say that about AJ? Didn't they say that about Greg? And I'm using them for examples because they won national championships, and so I guess if we're just going to break that down, we could put that out there. Let's go here on the Twitter world and let's see what we get out there. Let's see. Number 3 team in the SEC, Arkansas. And we'll see, you know, what everybody may think about that. I mean, I don't know why it couldn't be just with how they played last year and bringing him back. Let's just throw that out there and see what kind of response we get. Coach Kelly's doing a little talking. We'll jump back over there, and it's like Coach Kiffin should be on here in just the next few minutes. So, all right, thank you guys for coming by the page. Like I said, this is just some coverage of the SEC Media Day. I kind of done this a little bit last year. Just kind of did Coach Smart and Coach Saban and Jimbo. This year we'll just free through the morning here. I'm kind of already done with work for the day, so hey, I'm gonna watch it. So why not come by and just tune in? If there's only one person watching, that's okay. I'm gonna share some of it, and why not just go here and share it with you guys? And maybe some people don't get to watch it, and maybe you just want to click on here and you can kind of go through it with me. It's kind of fun. If you're out there working or whatever, just hit the podcast up right there. We're on Spotify and Applecast, and I'll plug this over there on Facebook also. We appreciate you stopping by and hit the subscribe button. And we'll be back on Sunday. We'll have a summer of greats for our local high school team. We're going to be doing the Spring Garden Panthers over there with Coach Howard. They've been a real reckless, just renovating team here in the past probably 7 or 8 years. Just really, did a 180 over there. Hats off to Coach Howard and Coach Ragsdale and staff. They do a good job over there. So, and of course, we're going to have more SEC news. Probably go through, break down maybe some of the teams and start talking about that kind of stuff. It's still really early. I mean, it's only July, and I'll probably be getting out through the week some and talking to some of our local coaches, because practice will be starting up actually a week from today. and they'll be getting ready to start off the 1st of August, and we'll run through a lot of local high schools through the month of August, still breaking down SEC stuff and talking that. And find us over at Big Matt 1977 on Twitter with Prime Time Sports Network. We appreciate Jacob Davis putting that together and asking me to come along here and share. And hey, man, we love it. It's SEC football. It just matters more here, is what they say. So let's get over here with Coach Kelly and see what he's talking about.
Giving them the resources necessary for them to be the best they can be. Whether it's nutrition that we're giving them or strength and conditioning that makes sense, they feel that love from us on a day-to-day basis. And so, absolutely, they're going to buy in even more.
Coach, talk to us a little bit about some of those names. So last year was my first year here at SEC Media Days, and by the end of the year, there were names that we didn't talk about at all.
Right.
Guys that just showed up, they were under the radar, so to speak. You've had an opportunity to watch your team for several months now. Talk about defensively some of those guys who we may be talking about in a few months that we're not mentioning.
Yeah, I think Mason Smith, the interior defensive tackle, could be as good as I've seen around. He rivals some of the players that we've talked about here in the SEC at Georgia. Physical presence that can play all 3 downs. I think he can be.
He can block out the sun as well.
He's that guy.
About 3 change, right?
6'5", 325, and can. You put him on the nose, and obviously you're gonna have to double him and free up some
Be a
guys.
nice Dorsey, okay?
You set yourself up for failure with those. But he's that kind of player. He's an impact player. We've talked about B.J. Ojolari on the edge. I think that there's opportunities defensively for this group to really be formidable because there's depth. I just like the fact that we have a number of players that have not really gotten their name out there yet that are hungry for that opportunity. And Matt House comes in from the Kansas City Chiefs that runs the kind of defense that we're looking for, that we can show you 3 down on 1st down and have the same personnel on the field and be in 4 down. Much to what you were used to with New England, you see 3 down and 4 down, you don't know where the birds are. You don't know what you're going to get. It's hard to identify. I think that's going to help us quite a bit too.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned a coach coming in from the NFL because a lot of teams are taking an NFL approach, having a front office right now. Roster management, I know roster management has always been critical,
No doubt.
but perhaps more so now than ever in the past. You took in 15 key transfers to try to shore up the roster. How has that changed, and how are you going about it at LSU immediately?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, our player personnel office now has a split. There's about a 20% that is looking at the rosters of other Power 5 schools that have players on it from the state of Louisiana. We know now that if you go into the transfer portal and you're from the state of Louisiana, we know everything about you. Because we want to bring back players from the state of Louisiana that have a vested interest and love LSU. For example, we have 2 players from the SEC that are really good players that didn't get offered scholarships from LSU. We took them in the portal. So we were intentional in the portal. We took guys that were from the state of Louisiana that maybe didn't get offered a scholarship that have played in the SEC, and then we took them in the portal. So there's a connection back there. So that office now has an NFL kind of look to it because we want to identify those guys when they go in the portal, especially from the state of Louisiana. We know who they are.
Half a year on the job right now. Everybody thinks they've got all the answers. You've been down this road before, you don't. What have you learned just in that time span that perhaps you didn't know about the program, didn't know about the place when you stepped up to the podium originally?
I think it's recruiting. I think you start, understanding, recruiting is 24/7. I mean, it is every single day. There's not a day off. I FaceTime 3 kids already. I mean, it is like, it's total immersion. And you know what? I don't mind it because it's a little bit different because you're in it earlier and you're talking to them earlier in this phase. My home is 0.08 miles from campus.
That's good.
And it's intentional.
Yeah, that's good.
Because you get unofficial visits, and so that whole process is a little different, but you're in it differently from that standpoint. It's all in, so it's been fun.
Well, there's been recruiting momentum and scores for those of us that follow the past week has treated you very, very well.
Not too bad.
Not too bad.
It's really
Good to visit with you, Brian. It's going to wait. We'll be seeing you on Sunday ABC primetime. We'll be there to stay. We'll be ready to. It's going to be filling out your ballot, just marking down. That's Mason Smith with 2 A's.
That's it.
2 A's. 2 A's. Mason Smith on that all SEC ballot coming up.
We love our new home.
It's got
Okay.
countertops all day. It's just
There's so much happening in the neighborhood.
Yeah, I would say, and people's joked about Coach Kelly and him coming to LSU and how he kind of acted. And everybody's seen the goofy dance that he done and all that kind of stuff, and it is funny. I could imagine, his background and kind of how he grew up, and he's an East Coast guy, and now just kind of showing up and coming up. I mean, Louisiana is a different kind of place. The players are different. The people that live there and how they are. I mean, food is a big part. Well, it's a big part of the South, period. But to him come from, out there, and he was at Cincinnati for a while. That's where most of us kind of caught him at. He left there in the middle of the night and took off Notre Dame, which, I mean, when Notre Dame calls, I mean, what are you supposed to do? I mean, you're gonna go take that job. So, yeah, I think it would be a big transition in lifestyle to come from a Catholic church-based organization where a priest is your athletic director to Mardi Gras. I mean, literally people partying in the streets, and it's crazy down there. It's just a complete party all the time. I've been through there a couple of times during the summer and during the fall, and never had any bad run-in with anybody. Most people I've run into in the store there, they were always friendly. So, can't really say much about that, but I would imagine that it would be, it could be pretty tough. So we'll continue on here. They're about to get back at it, and it's time for Coach Kiffin to come on. So let's see how all that goes. And thank you guys again for tuning in here on the 2022 SEC Football Media Day coverage. We've had Coach Kelly on, and he come up to the table and spoke, and we're fixing to get back over here and talk about some Ole Miss football. I went through earlier and kind of give my predictions on some of that, and maybe we'll hear a little bit more about the quarterback situation. Kind of see how that goes. Jackson Dart to be the guy, or the Adders kid. He's got a weird last name. These kids always have some funky last names, and it just not Bubba on the Rick and Bubba show. Man, these last names, they slay me, man. They are hard to say. I don't know where these kids are from. Like, I've never heard some of these last names like in my life. I don't know any of these last names and where they come from, where they live at, and most of them from around that area. We did talk about Ole Miss a little bit ago about some signees, and of course, Kip and Pike Road up here. This is Junkins' kid, Rashawn Junkins. Ole Miss is bringing back like 6 offense, so that could be pretty challenging in itself. And I think Coach Kiffin's got to come up, so get your popcorn ready and let's see what he's got. Starting quarterback last year, talking about Matt Corral, and go over and see what we got going on. Thank you guys for stopping by again. Hit that subscribe button. Tell your friends and neighbors. Matt and Todd Show. We cover our local sports here in Cherokee County. And we're going to do SEC. That's kind of mostly a big part of the show, but we're always going to show attention here for our local guys, too. We love going out games and getting to see them play and getting to know them better in the summer and in workouts. So thank you guys for coming by here. You can find us on Instagram. We share a lot of pictures over there. And on Twitter page, you can see there at Big Matt 1977. Go there and follow me. Lots of news over there for college football. That is where it goes through. And, of course, Facebook. I'll have feeds up. I'll share. And lots of pictures will be coming in next month. When we get games kicked off around here, I'll be sharing a few pictures from some games we go to. We have a player of the week we pick every week. We get a shirt and a food card that we get through sponsors around here in the county. We appreciate all those sponsors. So let's get back here and see what old Timmy Tebow, Luke Altyer, Altimer. I've heard from this girl. He's from Hottie Toddy over there on Twitter, and she covers. I mean, this is what she does, so I'm not going to argue with her about it. I mean, if she's down there and she's the one making the case for all this. Ole Miss 61% total experience returning. Preseason FPI ranked 17th, 2% chance to win SEC West, 4th best in the division. I think they're going to be good this year. Lane's always going to make some good calls. Now, me personally, I've seen Jake Crane, shout out Crane and Company, there down there on foot with the booth set up and table. I'll go back and watch them a little later. I like their show. Watch J Boy's show from way back. He put out a tweet earlier today that Coach Pittman, he does a good job at Arkansas. Then later on, he went out to say that. Hold on a second.
Our kids are so small. And you can't underestimate the turnover. I mean, losing one coordinator is difficult, but losing him on both sides of the football, I don't care that Charlie Weiss,
Coach O'Brien, that's what I was going to say. They were talking about something there I want to get on. It wasn't what I thought, though. But Coach O'Brien there at Alabama, offensive coordinator. Let's see. Let's see what his Bill O'Brien at Alabama, but Jake and Crane and Company, he put out Bill O'Brien to be the next head football coach at Alabama. Overall college, 15-9, 54-52 in the NFL. Nick Saban plays down Bill O'Brien rumors. This was back February. Entering his second season, Alabama coordinator has been linked to multiple job offerings. So obviously that's not happening. He's going to be sticking around, and Jake kind of predicted that he thinks that Coach O'Brien will be the next head coach at Alabama. So, that could be true. So let's get back at it.
83-84. As I was beside a lake in upstate New York, on a phone, looking longingly at the ability to be on the water, Lane was texting me pictures of he and his son Knox fishing, and he and his pet lab Juice on a jet ski. You may be aware that Deadspin has named Juice as the best Twitter account in sports for the summer of 2022. University of Mississippi head football coach Lane Kiffin.
All right, thanks, Commissioner. Excited to be here. I always think that this kind of re-energizes, refreshes you about the season coming up here in the middle of the summer. As you see other players, other coaches, or even as the TV was on before coming up here on SEC Network, and just kind of reminds you it's right around the corner. So our job is, I think, really challenging this year. Because on paper we may look, like we should be decent because we filled a lot of holes with transfer portals. So that is a good system.
They did have a good transfer portal class. They really did. They had the best,
long enough to
best in the conference.
Develop a lot of classes of depth. So
it's 15-8 last two seasons.
At the same time, with everything good, there are challenges as well. And you have people coming from, like I said, kids coming from different parenting, and we got to put them all together. It's a splendid family, so that is challenging. And in the fall camp, it won't just be about teaching X's and O's, like it always is. We have a lot of culture work to do that you don't like to do as much because it's already established, because your best players normally have been in your program for a year or two. So look forward to that challenge.
All right, thank you, Coach. If you have a question, please raise your hand. Jack, Jake, or Preston will get a microphone to you. Again, please put the microphone up close to your mouth so we can hear you, and give your name and affiliation. Coach, we're going to start right here in the center, about halfway back.
Michael Cuthbert at AO.com. Just wondering your philosophy on calling trick plays when you do them, and what do you remember about Nick Saban, his philosophy on that?
Well, like Kirby Smart used to say, sometimes you come up here and just end up talking about Alabama. So our first question somehow is about Nick Saban. So
yeah, it's never going to escape that. I think it's dumb questions. They should move on from that.
I don't know. I think kind of it has evolved so much from where we used to be that in a way maybe don't run as many because we're not quite the same as we used to be as far as setting things up as much because so much is about tempo and how we do things. So I would guess analytics on trick plays would show maybe we don't do as many as we used to. And coach kind of was with trick plays, kind of like fade kicks. Like it had to be a discussion a lot of times right before. He would want to know that week what was in and why, and a lot of times you'd run it by him before. So if they worked, he was happy. If they didn't work, you got to ask students.
All right, Coach, we'll go over here on the right side, about midway back in the orange.
Coach, Ryan LeBoy, Sports Call Auburn, this way. Ryan LeBoy, Sports Call Auburn. Your offenses have been well regarded for a long time now, and you just lost a quarterback in Matt Corral who you had a lot of praise for. When you look at Jackson Dart, how do you think he's coming along learning your offense? And just in general, do you think your offense is a difficult one to master?
Well, I think we've had a lot of really good offenses you referred to because we've got really good players, really good coaches, assistant coaches. So that's always changing. I think, we don't probably do a lot of things not as well as others, but I think one thing we do pretty well is change our offense to our players, to our skilled players. And it's why people will say we look so different year to year. That's not necessarily off-season studies. That is more who our players are. And now with the portal, we know less about that. So I can't really tell you right now what it's going to look like. We're going to need training camp to figure that out. As far as the quarterback, Jackson coming in, he's young, just like Luke. I just finished their freshman year. And so it was good to have those guys for spring. It's very competitive. We look forward to those guys battling it out and making them both the best that we can, because a lot of times you need both.
Coach, we're going to go right in front of me, about 3 rows back.
Coach, you're the Army WZZ and radio at Winslow, Alabama. I know you had a lot of history with Charlie Weiss Jr. at Alabama and then with you at FAU. Talk about bringing him back to your staff at Ole Miss and the job he can do. And also, second part of the question, one of the portal additions, Michael Trigg, had a great spring, and talk about kind of your expectations for him.
Okay, I'll start backwards. Michael Trigg, very talented player. Again, another young one that just finished his true freshman year. Had a really good spring games, done some really good things, and has a really high ceiling. But with all these portal guys, especially the younger ones, we've got a lot of work to do with them to get them into our systems, not just offensive, defensive, and special teams, but culture-wise. So, he's got a really high ceiling. We're excited to have him. And the first question was about Charlie Weiss. As I mentioned before, we've been fortunate to have really good players and really good assistant coaches. Jeff Levy did an unbelievable job for us. I'm sure he'll do a great job at his alma mater, Oklahoma. And Charlie has been with us two places before. I've always thought he was way ahead of the game, not just because he started young with his dad, but his mind is really unique and special. Can really memorize things like no other. So we're excited to have him in there and be able to work with him and put together a really exciting offense.
You're right here in the middle in front of me, about 3/4 of the way back.
Lane, Mike Rodak from AL.com. Just what sort of benefit is there to having that Alabama game be so late in the season this year after, early last season having to take that loss and have to overcome it after that?
Well, no disrespect to Alabama. I couldn't tell you what number on the schedule they were because we got a lot of things to figure out to work on before we get to game 1. So I'm not concerned about the schedule. I had a question earlier. Do you like that supposedly it's easier up front? Well, you don't know that. You got no idea. At the end of the year, all you guys, us included, think these teams are going to be better than these, and you don't know. So we just got to work one day at a time, integrate all these new players in, and play the best we can.
We'll go down here, front left, Parrish, behind you, other side.
Shaw for Daily Journal. Lane, can you talk a little bit about the things Matt did for you off the field last year, leadership, other characteristics, and where your candidates are in those areas?
That's a good question.
Well, Matthew is a special player.
That's a good, solid
As
question.
you guys know, but a special
Thank you for
leader.
being a good reporter and asking a good question.
You know, he just led by example. You know, he'd go running the offseason with the receivers and beat all of them, including Mingo, who's here. We'll tell you the story, how hard he worked. And I think our defensive players, he won them by the style that he played, by running over linebackers. And
Their first 4 games.
that's a challenge to replace. So
On SEC Network at 3 o'clock, Bama time, Troy, then Central Arkansas, travel to Georgia Tech,
quarterbacks coming in,
and then have Tulsa. So
for other people.
that's going to be a good month of scrimmage for them before they hit October. They'll start with Kentucky, October 1. That'll be interesting.
Wilson with the Action Network.
At A&M, Halloween weekend, that'll be a good game.
Was 46. Ole Miss had 49 last year. Is there an expectation that that will be the current pace this year? Is it just down a distance, analytics, field position, or could we be even more aggressive with Ole Miss football this year?
Thank you. I did not know we set a record. So now I know we have the most attempts in the history of football. So I used to coach for Pete Carroll. He said, don't just do things really well, do them better than anybody's ever done before. So he said, know that stat. And I think that's an interesting stat. You know, that when you talk about recruiting and players, and once they get there, you know, we sell too that we believe in you. And that's why it's not just, you know, analytics, you know, that's a huge part of it, but it's players feel that we believe in you, that we put you in those situations, that we play so aggressively. And, you know, so I can't predict what that's going to be like year to year as far as 4th down attempts, but you know, it's not easy, and like anything, if everything was easy, everybody would do it. So I get a lot of coaches don't follow the analytics because it's very hard for that press conference afterwards or that stadium to turn on you when it doesn't work. And the Alabama game last 2 years is a perfect example. You know, the first year we play them, we make a bunch of them, and everybody's saying, oh, that's great, you know, and then the next year we don't. And then you got to go to that press conference. So it's not easy to do, but, you know, there's a reason why we do it because, I mean, analytics are proof and your players know that you believe in them.
That's a good point. You know your players believe in you. If you're going for it on 4th down, that's a good point.
Question. There's 2 big personalities in the state of Mississippi, you and Deion Sanders. How has Deion Sanders touching down in Mississippi affected your recruiting? And also, I see that you have Central Arkansas on your schedule. Is there any plan down the line to play at Jackson State University?
That's a good
question. Are you open to that?
Good question. I like it.
Well, we got another personality, Mike Leach. So I would say personalities.
Yeah, you forgot that personality
in the state that are very unique and extremely different from each other. So it's been great to see Deion's success, Coach Sanders' success.
We just know him as a player. We can't help it, guys. We call him Deion. I'm sorry.
And so
it's weird calling Coach Sanders.
Future scheduling plans on that, but that would be exciting.
Coach, we'll go over here to our left.
They're projected to win 7 games. I think they'll win 8, maybe 9. Maybe they'll be at 8.5.
Rivalry with Mississippi State, you know, whether it be on the field or when it comes to recruiting, things of that nature. How valuable do you think it would be for you to start 3-0 in your career in the Egg Bowl?
Well, again, we got a lot of work to do before we ever get to that game. It's been exciting to be fortunate to be 2-0 in that. That, you know, means a lot to us, but especially to the people of Mississippi, obviously. And then, you know, until you get into those unique rivalries, then you can watch them on TV like I used to on Thanksgiving and hear about them, but you really don't know until you get to a place like Mississippi and you see how much it means to the people. And, you know, they're not kidding when they say like their next 364 days will be affected. You know, when the common fan says that, they're serious. So that has been neat to be able to give that to our fans, and hopefully we can continue that.
Which we're going to go to our right side, about 4 rows back.
Hey, Lane Wilson, Alexander with The Advocate. There's been a lot made with USC and UCLA going to the Big Ten of what kind of stretches the conference across the country. When you were the coach at USC, what kind of challenge would it have been to travel that much during a season?
That's not a bad question.
Well, that would be
I know it's not about this conference, but
you know, that schedule wasn't a lot of traveling. in the Pac-12 or Pac-10, even before that. So the Notre Dame game was a big thing, every year. And do you even go 2 days early in that conversation? So there'll be different challenges with that for a conference that's not used to traveling very far.
It's going to be different.
So,
Try to travel that much.
We have our own issues and problems to work on. So, and they can deal with that in whatever 2 years from now.
We're going to go back over here on the left-hand side, Edgar.
Yeah, Edgar Thompson, the Orlando Sentinel. You ready for another Nick Saban question? Sorry.
Sure, why not? I do it all the time.
There's been a lot of SEC coaches who came from that tree or worked for him at least, and with varying degrees of success. What aspect of the blueprint that so many are trying to implement is critical to have in your program? Like if there was one or two aspects.
I think that's a dumb question. Win.
I did it
grind.
The other day that went
Practice every day. Get better every day. That's Saban's thing. Attention to small details. And practice.
There's ever been a coach in any sport, college or professional, that has so many people under him that have major jobs. And you're talking about top 25 jobs. And I don't know if we counted 5 or 6 of them or something the other day when we counted all those guys that have been there or even that were there just for the 3 years I was there that were assistant coaches. So it really is amazing, not just for someone to produce coaches that people hire because they're trying to get the Alabama program, but for those to have success and to be at major places speaks volumes of how phenomenal a coach is. I think people take very different things from him, and I think you see that. I kind of think there's a difference when you look at offensive and defensive coaches. I feel like when you look at the defensive coaches that leave there, usually like the Georgia blueprint, basically take everything and move it there. And because that's a big part about Alabama's program, whatever year you were there, the defense was the same and it hasn't changed for the most part. And I think the offensive head coaches leave, whoever, and Billy or Sark or Vox, and the program looks a little different because they usually have their own offensive flair that they end up running. But I'm sure everybody probably takes, I would think, his organization, his commitment to the program, and try to model his discipline that he has within that.
Which we're going to go down here to our right-hand side, second row.
Charles Odom with the Associated Press. You mentioned right off the top the importance of the transfer portal and filling some holes on your roster this year. I'm wondering, in the last year, what changes have you seen in your discussions with potential transfers of the NIL, and what do you think the coach's role should be in that whole discussion?
That's a good question. It's a deep question for a media day.
In that discussion.
But that's a good question. I mean, that's something you probably want to do if you had him on your show, where he could get some time.
How you're going to do it right, and it's going to get capped, so that there's some way of controlling it and keeping playing fields close to the same. Otherwise, you're just going to have these glaring differences within Division I football based off of their, I've said before, their salary cap, and that's not really the right word. And ideally, I would think that the coach should be part of managing that.
It's 14 incoming transfers to Ole Miss this year.
But I don't know if it'll be that way or whatever. So that's just how I would do, and that's based off of look what happens in professional
14 with FBS experience.
The coach and the general manager / owner manage that.
Well, you see, a lot of these college teams are hiring general managers. So
the other thing about that too is if it's not, let's say, okay, well, why would you put it that way when coaches aren't supposed to be involved in that? Well, you got a whole other set of problems. If you got boosters out there deciding who they're going to pay to come play, and the coach isn't involved in it, how's that work? I mean, they just go pick who they want. And
so the boosters are going to buy players,
and the
boosters tell you who to play. So
they don't play, how's that going to work out?
Yeah, that's right.
Again,
good stuff.
This was not thought out at all, in my opinion.
The NCAA is a joke. They have no authority over any of this. And it's their fault for not tackling it up front.
People really thought about it from a coach's standpoint, could have predicted this. What's going to happen?
All right, we'll go straight down in front of me, 3 rows back, Lane.
Very good.
Right here. Lane Giffen, this is Lane Hayes from the Wall Street Journal. I had a question for you a little bit about recruiting and how it has kind of changed to be, more of a photo shoot or, experience. And you had, Rolls Royces on campus. You obviously have a very cute sidekick and Juice. Can you talk a little bit about, why you've chosen to kind of implement those things and kind of.
You have to. That's what's going on, man.
Even though it's, very much has nothing to do with what the actual product on the field is going to be.
Change or die.
I think for you guys that have been around me or listened to me, we don't sit around and complain how things are and how they should be. Yeah, ideally, shouldn't be picking places off of what your photo shoot is or what car they're taking pictures in. There's a lot of things that I wish were different, but it is what it is.
Yep.
It's like Coach Saban wants rules changed about hurry up offense. Well, he adapted. So we don't sit around and worry about that. I think we try to be creative. We kind of have a saying, we don't think outside the box, we just create a new box. And so if that's what kids care about and look at, then, we don't do things the way they were done before. And I think that's how we would operate anywhere, but especially at Ole Miss. You need to be that way to have a chance.
Their FPI ranked 17. I think they should be a top 15 in the league. I'd like to see them up a little higher.
Just do things the way they were before. He's like, I was waiting for someone to do it, so maybe the commissioner won't have a tie.
Maybe with a new quarterback, I guess.
So why are you supposed to wear a tie just because it was done before? Doesn't really.
All right, we're going to go midway through this mid-aisle.
Things are just done different now.
Aaron Gershon from the Boston Lexington. Kentucky is the cross-divisional game this year. What do you remember about that matchup a few years ago in 2020, and what's impressed you with how much that program has changed since when you saw them at Tennessee?
One day they're going to make you guys stand up because half the time I have no idea who's asking the question, so I just...
You're supposed to stand up. They shouldn't make you. That's what you should do.
A great game at Kentucky. We were brand new. That was the strange COVID year. So not only was it our first year, but we didn't have spring ball, and all of a sudden we're playing games, and what a crazy game to go down the wire like that. Coach Stoops has done an unbelievable job. At a place that isn't traditionally winning 8, 9, 10 games. So I always think that's really cool and special when someone can do that. And like I said before, doing things better than they've been done before, and I would think he's probably the best run of the school, I would guess. So we'll have a set of challenges there. He's very good on defense and very complicated, and I know they've had really good success running the ball, and we're very creative offensively. Watching some of their games last year and did a great job, especially with some NFL concepts involved.
All right, we're going to go with Coach right in front of me, Kirk, 3rd row back.
Kurt Bowles from the Austin American Statesman. That's the 4th and no download, by the way.
There you go.
UCLA, Texas, Oklahoma, 4 huge brands. 3 of them really not at the top of their game right now. Do you think they all 4 know what they're in for joining these 2 power leagues, and you think they'll struggle for a while?
They've been playing in great conferences and against great opponents, and so I just say how it is. I don't know that there's a huge jump into the Big Ten. I think going to the SEC is a whole other animal. And I think the draft picks and national championships prove that coming out of the SEC. And just said it's a different world. We've said it for a long time. The SEC just means more than it does. And it's just different. It's ahead of the game. And now over the last 5-10 years, the players have started coming that didn't used to come from the Northeast and the West Coast very often at all. And that transition, I feel like, started with Alabama especially, and now they're coming to the SEC. So that's a big challenge. So I know everything obviously is about money nowadays, or else teams wouldn't be going with these, playing all over the place and breaking up these awesome traditions. So, coaches got to deal with it and get ready for a different world.
Coach, we're going to go right here on the far right, front row, just right over to our right.
I would say that for you. Thanks, guys.
Front row is a little easier.
Yes, sir. So obviously, there's been a lot of, you're just talking about the volatility with the realignment in college football. What's it kind of like, as one of the coaches in the SEC, one of the conferences that everyone's been eyeing, trying to get into? What's it like to be one of the people on the inside where there's all this volatility going on?
Well, I haven't really thought about it that way. I've said, just like I mentioned, the SEC is the top of everything. And, so people are always trying to chase the SEC and figure it out. So I don't know the history behind the moves, but I'm sure it had something to do with the SEC starting the unique moves for that to happen.
It started when
traditional teams like USC and
Alabama and LSU playing for the title, Georgia and Bama,
That's really, there's so much tradition, and when you go to places, and you've been at USC, you've been at all these different places, you see how passionate fans are about certain things and what matters and rivalries, and for those to be dismantled for money is kind of a shame.
Okay, we have time for 3 more. We're going to start right over here on our right in the middle section.
I don't know if you're Saturday down south. Excuse my tie. Apologies for that. Lane, I saw that you signed a mustard bottle earlier. Had you signed a lot of those in the last 9 months?
I did sign a mustard bottle. That was the first guy to come up, which I think he had Alabama shit on, so I was a little confused there. And so yes, I've signed a lot of mustard balls and golf balls, which is not going to happen. So
that's pretty good.
It's been a unique off season.
Okay, we're going to stay over that.
I'm going to stay on the golf ball, which goes back to the first pitch, which I threw out for the Tennessee game, and we got swept by Tennessee and didn't play well, and everybody thought it was my fault. I had a plan. I wanted our guys to stay humble and not play very well, and then we'd go win the national championship in baseball. So I'd like to say that was the plan. So all the Tennessee fans that were all excited about sweeping us, there was a plan.
See, that's the kind of stuff, man. Yeah, somebody like him.
Hey, Coach, over here. Drew Barrett, ESPN Arkansas. Last year, not only one of the best games y'all played in.
He didn't stand up. They stand up. You're asking a question, man. It's just
Arkansas. What are your thoughts about rivalry with Arkansas and it becoming possibly one of the big marquee rivalries in the SEC?
Well, that was an exciting game, and again, it just shows you can't predict year to year, week to week. You got no idea how games are going to go because that game was completely different than the game the year before with them in a low-scoring game. So that's an exciting rivalry, one that means a lot to fans as well. And Coach did an unbelievable job there, turning around a program that we got there at the same time, and it really struggled. When Arkansas was losing, most of the games close. So to see the turnaround that Coach Pittman did is really amazing.
Yep, done a good job, Arkansas.
Coach, we'll go right here on straight in front of me, about midway back in the blue.
JoeGoodmanAL.com. 1 year into NIL, what have you found works with NIL? What doesn't work? And you say college football is all about money right now. So how have you managed that in your program? You mentioned maybe there needs to be general managers, but have you kind of delegated that responsibility to someone already, or how have you gone about dealing with that?
Well, the first question is the keys to NIL and how do you do well at that? You have really good boosters. That's how you do well at it. So
you just have somebody with a lot of money.
Other people don't say, as you know. So it's like a payroll, in baseball. What teams win over a long period of time? Teams that have high payrolls and can pay players a lot. So we're in a situation not any different than that. Which is what I'm not saying I didn't. I'm sure other people said that. I said it day one. You legalize cheating, and so get ready for the people that have the most money to get the best players. And now you have it. So
that's the competitive balance I was talking about.
General manager to manage that. We aren't allowed in the current system to manage what they make. So there isn't. We're not there yet, and I don't know that we ever will be. That's just what I said it should be, because that's what any other professional sports, which is what we are now, does.
Coach Gibbon, thank you for your time.
All right, guys, thanks for coming. Appreciate it.
Yeah, the kids are professional paid athletes. That is what it is. The coach has no control over it. So let's reflect a little bit there off some things he said back earlier in question 2 or 3 up there. Yeah, if the boosters are going to be buying the players, which is basically what happens. So now if you have boosters out being your recruiters, and so they run up on John David, who plays over here at Locapoca Middle Shack High School. He's the top quarterback in the state, and you go there and you talk to this kid and you promise him a bunch of money and you can make it through the company you're on, say whatever kind of company it is. Well, maybe the coach, he's on the radar, I'm sure, because if he's the best player in the state, the coach probably knows about him, but, what if he don't fit the program? Or, what if y'all don't agree? Well, if there's another quarterback that you have watched, and just by watching him play and being around him, you like his character better, you just like how he plays the game. But now, the booster controls, excuse me. But now the booster controls whether the player is going to get to play or not.
A lot. And I think it's fascinating, and it continues to build what Ole Miss is trying to do. Even his jokes and his smirks about Alabama and everything, I think it is something that intrigues a lot of recruits and their families, and that's why I think you see an Ole Miss program that has continually gotten better and gotten more recruits, which is the name of the game.
I think he definitely has a unique personality. But I think that he was also speaking to the boosters. He was speaking to the Ole Miss faithful when he talked about the payroll.
Yeah.
And the fact that the teams with the biggest payrolls have the best players and they win perennially. And so I think, and we saw this with Nick Saban last year, kind of telling supporters that, hey, we're in a new time when it comes to college football. NIL is here to stay. It's not going anywhere.
Yeah, but Saban was whining because he wasn't number one by other people's opinions that are not fans of the school. So is Lane whining because he's asking for more money? No, he just made a statement. The difference is Saban just has enough guts to call out the one who was number one at doing it. He was the best at doing it. And Jimbo's boosters were the best at it. But to get back to my other point, the coaches, how are they going to be involved in this kid that's coming from high school and that quarterback don't fit his system, or maybe he's learned some things about him that he don't fit into the program there. He could be a bad seed. Many of things. So now the booster says, well, look, I went here and got this guy, and I'm going to pay him a bunch of money, and we're going to do some ads down here in my grocery store. We'll get him some money and get him here to play for you, coach. And the coach says, well, I don't like him. That's not, well, I'll tell you what, those other 2 players I bought you, you just kind of forget about that. Next year, I'll just, here in the state of Mississippi, I'll just move on somewhere else. Now, we'll just go up there and talk to Coach Leach, or go around and talk to Coach Sanders, see if he'd like some of this money that I have. Does that happen a lot? No. But I'm telling you, it happens. And it's going to happen, and I'm sure it has happened. I think that's what happened at Auburn. And that was the whole reason of Coach Harsin. They couldn't get a handle on things. He had brought in a new offensive coordinator, and Whitey stayed just a little bit. He turns around and leaves. I think that's part of the problem down there. So this paying the players, how's it going to work out? Back to my comment to begin this, the competitive balance thing, I'm not talking about scheduling. The competitive balance and scheduling will be worked out, because if you're going to play at least 9 conference games inside your own division from people that kind of recruit in the same area that you do, you would figure the games will be pretty good. So instead of playing smaller schools, you can play more of a regular schedule to play teams that are more competitive for you. The competitive balance, again, the point I'm trying to make, that some people missed, and they're way up higher on the list on these YouTube channels than I am, and they seem to miss it. It's just what we're talking about here, the balance in money, because the big schools are the haves and the have-nots, and the have-nots, like, I don't know, Savannah, all these colleges, they're going to play some of these scheduled games here. We're just talking about Ole Miss, so, why not go over here and look at Ole Miss? Let's just say what's going to happen when Tulsa is not put on the schedule. Central Arkansas was not put on the schedule for Ole Miss in a couple of years, because now Texas and Oklahoma is going to be on the list. So that money that Ole Miss pays these schools to come play them, they're not going to get it anymore. These schools use that money to build their weight rooms, to do, whatever with they need to do with it. That's going to go away. So they're not going to be able to attract as many players at Tulsa because they're not going to have the money to do so. And it's just going to change abruptly. I think that's going to wrap it up for us today. It's a little after 2 o'clock. Coach from Missouri, Drinkwich, is going to be on here in just a little bit. And no knock against Missouri, but he will be on at 2:55, probably about 45 minutes. Excuse me, sorry. But anyway, so we'll get off here. Coach Kelly come on and talk a little while, and how he's kind of getting used to being down on the bayou and taking over for Coach O. Left him a decent class. They're a 5% chance to win the ACC, along behind Alabama. Of course, they're going to be favored to win the West, I'm saying. Coach Kiffin come on. Coach Kiffin's always a great interview. He's going to definitely give you all the answers you kind of want to know, and some you may not. And he just kind of tell it like it is. It's a free market out there now, and there's no cap on anything, and the best player goes to the highest bidder until we get somebody to grow a pair and step in and to make some kind of guidelines to how much you can pay these players. It's just gonna, the smaller schools will just go away. And yeah, when we're seeing better games as a fan and for coverage for what we do, it will be good. But that topic has been talked about 100 times, and we're not going to get back on it today. So we had a good media day, and we'll be back on tomorrow. Let me give you some kind of idea of what we're going to have going on here. Tuesday, Coach Saban will be on first in the morning at 8 o'clock Alabama time. 8 o'clock, okay? So I will be on here live by 7:55, and Coach Saban will speak, and Will Anderson will be in the house, Jordan Battle, and Heisman returning quarterback Bryce Young. Mississippi State, Coach Leach will be on at 12. South Carolina will be on at 1:25. What? Oh, what are you talking about? 10:30. Well, it makes that on the bottom. So at 10:30. Wow, they had that on the bottom. Sorry. So at 9, we're going to have Coach Saban on, and then Coach Lee from Vanderbilt will be on at 9:30. Coach Saban will be on at 8, and then we'll have Coach Leach at 12, and Coach Beamer. He's going to have your wide receivers joiner. It's going to be in the house with him. Excited to see him play. They'll be on at 1:25 South Carolina. So that will end it. And we thank everybody for coming by today. And we appreciate it. And we'll catch you guys in the morning at 8 o'clock. Coach Saban will be in the house. And we'll definitely make a listen with Coach Saban And I'm sure that I'd like to stay on and hear Coach Leach talk at 12. Coach Beamer and Coach Neal, we might have to exit early on that. I got some stuff to do around town here. We're definitely going to get Coach Saban at 8 and be in with Coach Leach. Come on, have lunch with us at 12 o'clock. All right. Thank you guys for coming by today. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll see you guys in the morning, okay? 8 o'clock. Be right back here, and we'll see what Coach Saban has to say. Keep an eye out on Twitter. See what's going on the rest of the day with the news and the media days. You can tune in over at Crane and Company. Check those guys out. Late Kick Josh, he's down there too, and all the other guys. So, all right, y'all have a good day.